Live from Chatterbox Sports Studios, it's Off the Bench with Thom Brennaman.
Well, good morning, and a pleasant good Monday morning to each and every one of you. Great to be back in the saddle. Thanks for joining us here on Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. I'm Thom Brennaman. We come your way Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to noon Eastern Time. You can follow us a number of different ways here on YouTube/Chatterbox Sports. We also stream daily on Facebook via the Chatterbox Sports page and in podcast form. Just search Off the Bench with Thom Brennaman, and you're dialed in. Gentlemen, Casey, Paulie, how we looking, man? How's everything?
Casey?
We're looking good, Tom. We're looking really good. Got a lot of first-place teams here in Cincinnati. Got a lot
First
of
thing
good
you were
teams.
talking about when you walked in the door this morning, Casey, it's a great day to be a greater Cincinnatian.
Got no better time than right now. No better time.
I mean, you're talking about FC Cincinnati. We'll get to them in a minute. Off to a great start this year, right? You got the Red Legs. We're going to talk about them a lot. 2 out of 3 over the weekend. And your Cincinnati Cyclones. Hottest team in professional hockey.
It's true. And they're in first place. All 3 professional teams here in the city in first place.
My son laughed at me yesterday when he turned on 2 days ago, whatever it was. The Rangers were playing Boston, 2 of the best teams in the NHL. Were playing.
Yeah.
Game went to overtime or something. And I said, hey, man, you want great hockey? Just go right down to Heritage Bank Arena. Hottest team on the planet, right?
That's right.
I want to hear all about your opening day experience. All of you went down there from Chatterbox Sports, right?
Yep.
Beautiful day. Tell me a little bit about it, Case. You're becoming a baseball guy. As Jerry Nairn used to say, you're a baseball guy.
Yeah, it was a really good experience. You know, I think I'd never been in the outfield before watching a baseball game, for one. I didn't even mention that when we last talked about it. And that was, honestly, that was a really cool experience, being in the outfield. The very first fly ball, I was like, oh, that's gone. But no, it wasn't really close. But, yeah, it was a great time. I had a lot of fun. It was a good atmosphere. There was this one lady that came through our tunnel dressed in like this weird witch's cloak, and then she like got on her hands and knees and like started doing this weird prayer ritual, and then she just booked it out of there.
Was she Dominican? Was she Haitian?
A voodoo? I have no idea. She was all cloaked. She was all masked up and everything.
Really?
Yeah. The weirdest thing I've ever seen. And as soon as she did that, it cursed the team. At least for that game. Because then they ended
She cursed or took off a curse?
Oh, that.
I mean, if
At
I
what
was
point in this game did it happen?
Was this
ended
a
up
Reds
losing.
fan?
I don't know.
Oh, you don't know. Okay.
I don't know.
All right. Okay.
She's all in black.
He was hallucinating.
No. You can ask Trace and Sean and Kirby. He saw it too, I'm pretty sure. But anyways, besides that, the game was really fun. It really came down right to the end, if you ask me. And we had the Reds parlay.
Yeah.
That came down right to the end too.
Well, the best part was that we had the Reds to win, and then we also had Jake Fraley to hit a home run, and he came up with Jonathan India on second base with 2 outs in the 9th inning, down by 1, and I'm sitting there going, man, he hits a walk-off home run here. We're going to make a little coin, and we're going to be happy that the Reds won. Nope.
I think I told you guys a story a few weeks ago when I went down to visit some friends of mine from the Diamondbacks who I worked with, and they were in town last summer. I may have shared this story already. If I did, just tell me to shut up. But these guys are young guys. I'm sitting there, and the game goes in a rain delay in the 8th inning, and I'm sitting there at the Holy Grail across the street, right? And I'm waiting on them to come over and have a beer. Well, now a rain delay in the 8th inning. And you're just like, you got to be kidding me. So I'm sitting there, start talking to a bunch of college guys, UC students. And they've got money, a parlay of 3 guys in Major League Baseball to hit a home run during the games that night. Well, I'm sitting next to this one guy. 2 of the guys had already hit a home run. And the third guy he's betting on was Tyler Stevenson. They sit through a 45-minute rain delay. Back they come. The first batter up, I'm sitting next to the dude. First batter up is Tyler Stevenson. Bye-bye. Home run. This guy won like $4,000, something stupid.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it was insane. Prop bets.
Prop bets. That's my favorite.
I'd love to hit one home run. One home run, like on a bet. One guy to hit a home run, much less 3 in the same bet. No. It was a good day on Thursday, though, Tom. It was great weather.
Right.
It was a fun game. I know the Reds lost, but it was a fun game. It was a close game. And what I was saying to these guys the other day, we were talking about the pitch clock, was that it felt like a quick game. The middle innings got pretty slow, but it felt like a quick game overall. And then you look at the clock; it was right at 3 hours. So I know you have some more things you want to talk about with the pitch clock as the show goes on, but we've already seen it through just the first weekend of the season.
Well, somebody put up on Twitter last night that the last 5 seasons, and it's ranged anywhere over the last 5 years from average time of game, anywhere from 3:04 to 3:12. It was either 2:23 or 2:33 was the average time of game for all the games played the opening weekend. That is mind-boggling. That's the way it used to be. And I'm not sitting here sounding like an old man or, whatever. That's the way it was not all that long ago. And it made baseball a very appealing game. But now all of a sudden these drags, in the last number of years, dragging on and on and on and on. Props to the powers that be at Major League Baseball for these new rules. We've seen an occasional pitch clock violation, that kind of thing, but it's rare through the first weekend. And we're going to get to some of the comments made by Rob Manfred. I said to my wife, I said, you know what? It's the first time in my life I feel like I've been right about something, anything. I was saying 7 years ago that sabermetrics were the ruination of Major League Baseball. Years ago. I don't know if you saw the story that Rob Manfred shared at an event on Saturday. So he says he gets a phone call from an owner of a Major League Baseball team. He would not name that owner. Very well-known owner. Wouldn't say who it was. Says the owner calls him up on the phone and says, you know what? He says, here we've been the last number of years doing all this analytics stuff. He said we've hired 40 people to work in our baseball analytics department. He said, I've never taken the time to actually go down there and see what the hell is going on down there. What is this all about? He says, so I took 3 days last week. This is the owner of the team. He says he goes down in this area. He had never been in this area. It's this big, huge open space. Owner acknowledged a bunch of really smart young people, young men and women. 40 of them in there. And the guy says to him, he says, we've added 45 jobs to this place. He said, and at the end of the day, I could not tell you if we've won 2 games total because of all of this stuff. And the owner made the comment. He says, the analytics, this is his quote, the analytics, and Rob Manfred shared this quote, said that it's an arms race to nowhere. And it led to these games becoming boring. No action. 3.5 hours long. I mean, can you imagine that opening day game that was 3:02, 3:03, something like that? Can you imagine that a year ago without a pitch clock? That's a 4:10 game. Easily. 4 hours and 10 minutes. 3:02, 3:03, if that feels long, or if that is long now, God bless him for baseball taking. I don't say a lot of great things about Rob Manfred around here, but I'll tell you what, when it comes to these rules changes, it is going to change the game. It's going to change the scouting of the game. It's going to change the way you go out and sign players, what kind of players. Now, look, there's nothing wrong with information and having some of that, right? Like I was talking to my dad last night. We had dinner together celebrating Luke's 18th birthday. And happy birthday, Lukey, man. I love you. But we're talking about how, now all of a sudden, you're getting more action without the shift. You're getting base hits. You're getting guys running. You're getting action moving. You've got a lot of things that are happening in the sport that 1 year ago, none of this was happening. And I got to believe it's going to pay off huge for Major League Baseball and its future. All right, we start with a local 9. After a loss to those Pirates on opening day, the Reds responded with a 6-2 win on Saturday. Now, lefty Nick Lodolo. This is another very positive development. He did not look great. He allowed 9 base runners through 109 pitches in 5 innings, but a lot of times with a young pitcher like you saw with Hunter Green in the opener. With a young pitcher, 9 base runners, 109 pitches in 5 innings. Normally that line, the pitcher would have given up 4 or 5 runs. Nope, Lodolo gives up 2. And he gets a win. Jake Fraley, the guy you were counting on hitting a home run opening day, clubbed a 3-run pinch hit home run. Former Pirate Kevin Newman hit a 2-run homer to beat Rich Hill. Then came the rubber game yesterday. And what about Graham Ashcraft? Sensational. Goes 7 innings of 1-run baseball, strikes out 6, walks only 1, threw fewer than 100 pitches in the 7 innings. And the Reds made it a winning series, 3-1 the final yesterday. The Reds did not win their first series of the year in 2022 until the 2nd week of May. Now, the competition gets a little better tonight, at least theoretically gets better tonight, because Reed Mouse's Chicago Cubs, I'm not buying them. Some might, right? That's a 6:40 game. Reed Mouse is going to the game, by the way. Big Cub fan. Connor Overton gets a start for Cincinnati. Cubbies lost 2 of 3 over the weekend to the Brewers. And our good friend, Mr. Chicago Sports, lover of all things that are Cubbies, David Kaplan, will join us at 11:15 for a preview of the Chicago Cubs. Cardinals ace Jack Flaherty, who missed almost all of last season with a shoulder injury, threw 5 no-hit innings against Toronto Saturday. He did walk 7 batters, and he hit a batter. Cardinals won 2 of 3 over the Jays over the weekend. Dodgers' Trace Thompson made his first start Saturday night, and what a start. 3 home runs, drove in 8. Dodgers over Arizona 10-1. Thompson is the first player to drive in 8 runs in a season debut since the RBI became an official stat back in 1920. All right, tonight, college basketball, the national championship game down in Houston, Texas. Surprising San Diego State after shocking, what a killer shot it was, over Florida Atlantic in Saturday's semi, last second by Lamont Butler. The Aztecs erased a 14-point second half deficit. Their only lead was the game-ending shot. In the other semifinal, no contest. UConn is blowing through everybody. Steamrolled Miami 72-59. The Huskies have won their 5 games in the tournament by an average of 19 points per game. Tonight's tip-off, it's too late. 9:20. Too late. Too late. I get it why they're doing it, especially with a West Coast team in the finals. 6:20 out there. Too late. The Women's National Championship game featured 2 programs that had never been to the title game, Iowa and LSU. This turned into an NBA All-Star game with the scoring. It was unbelievable. LSU shot 34% on the year from 3. And everything LSU threw up there from 3, it went in. 102-85, the final, the highest scoring game in women's tournament history. Iowa's Caitlin Clark scored 30 after back-to-back 41-point games. She sets the all-time record for most points and assists in a women's NCAA tournament. Other basketball news, Paulie, your guy Colby Jones.
Yeah.
Bye-bye. Declares for the NBA draft. Will pass up his final year of eligibility at Xavier. He did pen a very classy thank you to Travis Steele. Very classy. The guy who recruited him. Sean Miller, his teammates, the staff, everyone at X, all the fans on the way out the door. Now, opinions do vary on his future at the next level, Paulie. Your thoughts, if any?
I mean, I think he's going to be a first-rounder by every projection that we've seen so far. He's going to be a first-rounder. I think his skills really translate to the next level. You think back to guys that were very good at Xavier recently, whose skills maybe didn't translate to the next level. If you think back to guys like Trayvon Blewett, I mean, J.P. McCure is having a great overseas career, but some of those guys, it's just now become a situation where you have all these really, really good college players, and some of their skills translate to the NBA, some of them don't. Najee Marshall actually is having a fantastic year down there for New Orleans, if you want to talk about recent Xavier guys playing in the NBA. But I think that Colby is going to – I think his skills and his skill set really tend to make me think he's going to have a pretty good, or at least a long NBA career. I think he's somebody that can stick around for a while. Hasn't really ever had injury issues too much, too significant. And he's a versatile scorer. He's a good defender. A lot of things that translate to the next level. Okay.
Well, we wish him well. I was really impressed by that. You know the kid. I mean, maybe you aren't surprised by his
no, I wasn't.
What he wrote. Birmingham, Alabama he's from, right?
Yeah, I was a little surprised that he just came right out and said that he was not retaining his college eligibility, because now you can declare for the draft and still come back.
Yep.
And he hasn't declared for the draft before. So I did think that maybe he would declare, get an evaluation, and then come back next year if maybe he didn't hear exactly what he wanted to hear. But the fact he's not coming back, I had no expectation really of him coming back, so it is what it is.
Okay. Friday, it was announced, I think, during the show, I don't know if you guys got to it, about Darren Horn. He got a big contract extension. After leading NKU to the NCAA tournament this season, we're very excited for him. The new deal makes him the highest paid coach in the Horizon League. Did you see the comments made by Bob Huggins over the weekend from the Final Four? He said he feels sorry. And he didn't say it in a mean way. He just said he feels sorry for UC and the three other teams that are about to join the Big 12 Conference next year, specifically in basketball. Huggins said it's the best league he's ever played in, ever coached in. When you look at the coaches, the players, the teams, the fan support, he says is off the charts. He says not only do you play these teams once, you play them twice. And he said that these schools have no idea what they are in for starting next year.
And I don't even think it just goes for basketball either. I mean, I think the Big 12 proved that they're a really good football program too.
Yep.
I mean, this is not a conference that you can take lightly in any sport.
No, not for the meek.
No.
Although the meek, they say, shall inherit the earth. So maybe that's good news for Huggy or for UC this year. We got to talk soccer. We
Absolutely.
have to. FC Cincinnati, by all accounts, including their head coach, they weren't great, but they were good enough to beat Miami 1-0 at TQL Stadium Saturday night. Let's put this into perspective for a second, okay? A year ago, through 6, not games, through 6 matches. We are getting all the jargon down here on Off the Bench. A year ago, through 6 matches, FC had allowed 14 goals, did not record a single shutout. Through 6 matches this year, allowing a total of 4 goals, posting 4 shutouts in 6 games. Now, next up, regular season albeit, huge game, a rematch of last year's Eastern Conference semifinal. That's against Philadelphia. And FC, Casey McAllister, sits atop the conference through the first month and a half of the season. Did you watch it, yay or nay?
I did watch it. And Pat Noonan, he said...
The head coach.
The head coach, I'm sorry.
It's all learning for all of us. Thank you.
Any of you guys that don't know, Pat Noonan did a post-interview with the pundits of the MLS, and he said it the best way that anyone could really describe how they played, and it was poor. They played really bad, and they still managed to find a way to win the game, and that sometimes is all that matters, is are you a winning team? And I think that's what FC missed last season, was they just couldn't learn how to win games. They were drawing a lot. They made enough wins, obviously, to get far into their playoff tournament. But being able to squeak away with the win when you play that badly, and I mean, they only had like 35% possession. I mean, it was bad. But they had enough shots on goal. The goal that they did score, it was really just a great transition. It was just really heads-up play. So, I mean, FC right now, they sit first in the Eastern Conference. They play Philadelphia. I think right now I'm looking at the standings, and Philadelphia is 8th in the Eastern Conference. I'm not exactly sure where they've struggled at, but it looks like when they play away, they've really struggled. So I can't remember. Is this game at home?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, so
FC plays 6 of the next – well, now it's 5 of the next 7. After the other night going into the game, it was 6 of the next 8 at home. And apparently this is a huge stretch for FC Cincinnati. Hey, before our buddy Aaron Freeman just wrote back on an email or a text right on Twitter.
Yep.
He's going to join us at 10:30.
Gotcha.
So I asked him to send his email so we can send the link. If you're wondering, we'll get to this here in a second. Lastly, want to mention in our headlines here, the Masters begins this week in Augusta, Georgia. Tiger Woods is already there, on the prowl, getting ready. But there's a lot of intrigue here, as players from the LIV Tour can compete against their PGA brethren. Is that the right word?
They would like to think so.
Who would?
The
LIV guys?
The LIV guys.
Yeah. They're the ones that are walking around in their practice rounds with cash falling out of their pockets. But, I mean, is there going to be some drama here? Some blow-up between players? Been a lot of nasty stuff. It's one thing to say it when you're 1,000 miles away, Rory McIlroy. It's another thing to say it to, let's say, Koepka's face. Think Rory wants to tangle with Brooks Koepka? No. No chance. Hopefully it doesn't come to that. We shall see beginning on Thursday. All right, you're wondering, what are we talking about here and what's going on? All right, here's the deal. What we're going to do is Casey and Paul and I and Trace Fowler, with the draft coming up in a little more than a month, we are going to start to walk through team by team, okay? And we're going to call it, where have you been, where are you now, and where are you going? What does all mean? We're going to find somebody that follows, any particular team. Today we're going to start with the Atlanta Falcons, okay? We're going to find out where have they been. Last year we saw the Falcons. Bengals boat raced them here. They didn't make the playoffs. Where are you now? At least right now, Des Ridder is their quarterback. They've been very busy in free agency. And where are you going? What are they thinking about with the draft and some other free agent pieces, right? So we're going to try to cover every team. We're going to do our best to cover every team in the NFL leading up to the draft. So we were thinking about initially doing it in draft order, but then I think Trace or maybe Casey, you pointed out that if we do it that way, we're going to be talking about the same handful of players right out of the gate, right? Yeah. I mean, Stroud and, Bryce Young and now all of a sudden Anthony Richardson and all these kind of guys. So we just figured we would do it or try our best to do it division by division. Now, it's not going to work out perfectly here. But today we're going to start with the Atlanta Falcons and a young man named Aaron Freeman who covers the Falcons nonstop. He calls himself the Falcons Prophet, host of Locked On Falcons podcast, writes occasionally for the Falcoholic.
That's a great name.
And he says, yeah, it is a great nickname.
That's a great name.
Well, if you watch the Falcons long enough, you turn into an alcoholic.
At least the last couple of years. The Falcons are truly a sneaky team this year, if you ask me. I'm very excited to hear what he has to say.
Are the Falcons your Lions?
From last year?
Yeah.
They might be. They might get to that point.
They might get that treatment.
It just depends on Desmond Ridder, because I feel like they've done enough defensively, like they've got Calais Campbell now. They got Jesse Bates, a guy that we all know. They went out and got some really good linebackers, some depth guys that a lot of people don't know about. And they have that number 9 overall pick, and you can get a guy, you could get the first corner out of this draft at number 9. That's just the way the draft is falling right now. So I'm just really excited to hear what he has to say about this team, because I think, you know, they've got the makings of being a very good team. I think they just need one thing to really happen, some really very high development from Des Ridder, and they could be sky the limit sort of team.
And there's
Especially
still all
in the
that
NFC
talk
South.
out there about Lamar.
Yeah, Lamar would fit perfectly in this team, and the scheme. They're a very run heavy team. So I mean, I'm very excited to hear what he has to say. So then we can all be on the Falcons together, because if you were sitting there last year and you listened to us talk about the Lions, me and Trace, I mean, the total wins on the season for them, you would have hit that easily. I think they were like at 6 or something like that. So I don't know.
Well,
what
you
the
were
Falcons are
all
this
over
year,
the Falcons, Casey McCullister. I mean, the Lions from the get-go last year.
but yeah. And
You
I'm
picked
all
them
over
to make the
next year.
playoffs, and they almost did.
Yeah, and I'm on them this upcoming season too. I think them even more so than the Falcons. I think more people realize that the Lions are pretty good this year, but I mean, they got 2 first-round picks at really high picks. I think it's like 6 and 15 or 16 or something like that. And they didn't really lose anybody. I think Jared Goff has shown that he can at least get you to the Super Bowl. He might not be a game-changing quarterback,
Yep.
but when you've got a super talented team like the Lions do have, and they will continue to add talent, I think they might be underrated.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. Cam and Eggers take it away, and then we're going to be joined to learn more about the Atlanta Falcons right after this timeout.
It's that time of the show, the Ham and Eggers. These guys are great. Trust me, I would know. I introduce all the best segments.
All right. What are the chances we talk about the Bengals today? I would say 70%.
Oh, we're going to talk about them. I don't think we're going to talk about them ad nauseum as we have in the past, because, you know.
So are we making it the Bearcats report since we talked about Huggy?
Let's make it the Bearcats report.
All right, you know what? It's the Bearcats report, and it's brought to you by Encore Technologies. Encore Technologies provides IT solutions for a data-centered world with a suite of services from mobile computing to desktop to data center, supporting both centralized and work-from-home computing models to improve efficiency and
productivity.
That's right, Casey. Did I get you there?
No,
bit? Did I get you there a little bit? Oh, we got Aaron joining in here, so that's why. Visit Encore.tech. The path to innovation begins here. There is also a new premium alkaline water out. You can see it right here in front of me. It is Pawnee. Made in Hamilton, Ohio, Pawnee uses natural limestone filtration, unlike the artificial processing that many other brands use. The result is a healthy alkaline water that is also the best tasting water in the world. Visit their website at pawneewater.com. That is P-A-H-H-N-I water.com, P-A-H-H-N-I water.com, to see where you can buy this great tasting water. Drink Pawnee water, get your coffee from UDF, get your technology solutions from Encore, and bet with Betfred. Those are our presenting sponsors of Off the Bench with Thom Brennaman, and we will be joined here shortly by Aaron Freeman, Locked On Falcons, and all that to talk NFL. Casey, any other thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, no, I can take that off. The one thing that we kind of brushed over, and I think we're going to talk about it maybe a little bit more, that championship game for LSU last night, and for them to come away with the win. I mean, I don't think if anyone that truly watched that game felt like they didn't deserve to win. They were hitting their shots.
The women's game?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They deserved to win the game. I was just disappointed in everyone complaining about the sportsmanship And
yeah.
I mean, I don't know if any of our fans necessarily care, but all over Twitter, I mean, I just couldn't believe it. I mean, like, isn't that what we want? We want that smack talk. We want the celebration and all the talk. Like, that's, I don't know. I thought it was great.
Did
honestly.
you see the tweet on that sent out by Dave Portnoy?
We do have Aaron in here, by the way.
Okay, well, let's get to Aaron. We'll get to all this a little bit later on because I do want to pick this back up because, anyway, all right. All right, so we're playing now, and we thank on such short notice Aaron Freeman. We mentioned Falcons Prophet. Now, that's big league language right there now. I mean, the Falcons Prophet, host of Locked On Falcons podcast, writes occasionally, one of the great nicknames we were talking before you got here, Aaron Freeman, of the Falcoholic. Before we go any further, though, you say you are a Pitt alum. We don't like much about Pittsburgh here in Cincinnati. Are you a Pittsburgh guy?
Look, I lived there for 4 years when I went to college. Definitely support the school and the football program. You know, the basketball team has been up and down the last couple of years, but this year things finished pretty strong. So I think I'm going to get right back on that bandwagon for Pitt basketball.
Aaron, did you play football there? You look like you're built like a football player.
Yeah, I'm a large human, so did not play football at Pitt, but yeah, definitely have had multiple people make that mistake before.
All right. Well, we thank you for joining us here today, and the great-looking setup you got there. I mean, you got the Falcons parking pass there. You got pictures of the dome, the whole 9 yards. Hey, we're walking through, starting with you. You're our inaugural guest here, and we appreciate your time. Looking at each team in the National Football League, a little more than a month out in the draft. And we asked 3 questions. So I'm going to take one of them at a time, if you don't mind. Where have you been? Where are you now? And where are you going? Falcons last year finished up 7-10. They won their last 2 games of the season after going, I think, through an 11-game stretch where they lost 8 out of the 11 games. It took them out of playoff contention in a down NFC South. You look back on last year, and if you're a Falcons fan, what can you take away on a positive note? And what do you take away saying, man, this was not good?
I think the positives you take is the young core that the Falcons are building. I think several of their 2022 draft picks, including quarterback Desmond Ridder, wide receiver Drake London, running back Tyler Algier, finished the season relatively strong on offense. And I think the Falcons look at that as something that they can build around for the future. They're getting a healthy Kyle Pitts back after he missed the better half of the second half of the season. So I think the Falcons like their young core based off of where they finished last year. And they're putting a lot of confidence in that young core, making a big jump in year 2 for those 2022 draft picks, as well as Kyle Pitts now in year 3 moving forward. So I think the Falcons are in a good spot from where they finished in 2021. I think the area that was probably the biggest question mark for them last season was their defense, and they went into this offseason and went pretty aggressively trying to attack some of their needs there, going out there and getting safety Jesse Bates, linebacker Caden Ellis from the Saints, David Onyemata, the D tackle from the Saints, as well as Calais Campbell from the Baltimore Ravens. So I think the Falcons feel like they're in a good spot, elevating that defense and have a young core and offense to build around.
Okay, last year the team starts with Marcus Mariota as a quarterback. And, hey, look, early in the season, there were signs that this guy was playing up to the billing as a former number 1 pick and all those kinds of things. But then as the season went on, and whether it was, ineffective play, injuries, et cetera, let's zero in on Desmond Ridder because we have a soft spot in our heart for that young man here. He was an incredible leader, an incredible player, an incredible guy on and off the field here at the University of Cincinnati. You can make an argument that he is the greatest he's the greatest winner in the history of the University of Cincinnati as a quarterback. quarterback is concerned. What are the thoughts on Ritter? Before we get into some of the other noise out there with Lamar Jackson and so forth, how does the organization, the fan base, everybody feel about him being a starting quarterback potentially for this upcoming season?
Well, the organization since the end of the season has been pretty praising of Desmond Ritter and looking at some of the things that he did in the second half or in the last 4 games of the season as a positive. And I think a lot of people, you mentioned Marcus Mariota starting and then kind of fading towards the end that led to Ritter getting that promotion. And a lot of people looked at last season as why were the Falcons waiting so long to plug Desmond Ritter? If they really like Desmond Ritter, how come he couldn't beat out Marcus Mariota for the better part of last season with Mariota starting the first 13 games? And I think a lot of that is owed to something that happened with the Falcons the previous year, where they had a pair of rookies in a second-round safety, Richie Grant, and a third-round guard, Jalen Mayfield. And Mayfield was a player that the Falcons kind of threw to the Wolves right away as a starter, and he wasn't ready, and he really struggled in 2021. And Richie Grant was a player that the Falcons were kind of slow playing it. He did get some work in the second half of the season playing in their nickel sub package as a cornerback. And then you saw him make a big jump in year 2. And I think the Falcons learned a lesson from that in not wanting to throw a young player out too early before they were 100% confident that they were ready to play. And I think that led to the delay on Desmond Ritter getting some action. But I think the Falcons feel like with Ritter and some of the things that he showed, especially in those final 2 games, beating the Arizona Cardinals and beating the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in week 17 than week 18, I think the Falcons feel a lot better going forward with Desmond Ritter being the starter, having a full offseason, getting to work with the starters, something that he did not necessarily do last year, sitting behind Mariota for most of the summer. And I think the Falcons feel really good about, the character, the leadership, all the things that Desmond Ritter showed at Cincinnati for 4 years that led that program to, one of the heights of that program with,
Sure.
making the playoffs that final year. I think the Falcons feel pretty confident that will translate for Desmond Ritter for the Atlanta Falcons.
Talk to me a little bit about the head coach, Arthur Smith. I find him to be an interesting guy, if for no other reason that it is rare to see a former offensive lineman as an NFL head coach. You just don't see that much anymore, even though you talk to most people around football for years and years and years, and most will tell you they believe the smartest players on any given team, college, pro, whatever it might be, outside of the quarterback, would be members of the offensive line. He was with Mike Vrabel down there in Tennessee. This will be his 3rd year coming up. I think his record's 14-20. How do you feel about him as a head coach so far?
Yeah, I mean, you can tell he's a former offensive lineman just because he's kind of a no-nonsense. The sort of identity of the Falcons football is physicality, winning along the line of scrimmage. And so he kind of takes pride on the Falcons being a tough physical football team. And that's something that, is sort of born and bred in offensive linemen, given that they have to play every snap through injuries and are basically constantly, getting into scraps every single down. And that bears out with the identity of the Atlanta Falcons, given their dominant run game that they had a year ago, helmed by Tyler Algier, as I mentioned earlier. I think, the thing with Arthur Smith, he can come off a little prickly to some folks when it comes to, having that sort of no-nonsense approach. But he also has a great sense of humor. So, it's just one of those things with the media that if you ask him the right question, he can be very engaging and entertaining in a lot of ways. But if you ask him the wrong questions, he doesn't necessarily have some of the patience for some of those questions.
Okay. You were talking about Des Ritter. There's still a lot of noise out there, and tell me, what level you think it's noise, what level you think there might be something to it. Lamar Jackson.
I think it's mostly noise at this point. I think with Lamar Jackson, one of the bizarre stories of the offseason has been how very little interest there has been with Lamar Jackson. And for obvious reasons, I think the Falcons made a ton of sense going into the offseason as a potential destination for him. I thought, the Falcons would definitely explore that. From what we've heard from Arthur Smith, that the Falcons have had conversations about it, but they never really ventured down that road too deeply. And, you look at the scheme fit that Lamar Jackson has coming from that Baltimore offense to how some of the ways that Arthur Smith was able to use Marcus Mariota and some of the young pieces that we talked about earlier that the Falcons have. It would make sense for the Atlanta Falcons to bring in someone like Lamar Jackson. Certainly he would be a huge draw for the home crowd. Something that the Falcons necessarily haven't had the last couple of seasons, and goes back to the days of Michael Vick here in Atlanta. So it totally makes sense why so many people thought the Falcons would be sort of the front runners to pursue Lamar Jackson. But we've basically seen from a number of NFL teams, not just the Atlanta Falcons, that there isn't a ton of interest in Lamar Jackson. And I think a lot of it stems from ownership in the NFL not necessarily wanting another sort of big time fully guaranteed contract based off of all the reports that indicate that's what Lamar Jackson has been seeking from the Baltimore Ravens. And I think that's kind of cooled the market a lot on Lamar Jackson, even though I think everybody acknowledges that he's a really good football player. I think there's reluctance to pay him the type of premium that is reportedly out there for him. And I think it doesn't help that we haven't really seen Lamar Jackson play meaningful football late in the season the last couple of years. Mm-hmm. And I think that's also scaring off teams that if they're going to pay that huge premium, they want to, bet that money on someone that they are a lot more confident at this point can, play meaningful football in January and potentially into February. And we just haven't seen that with Lamar the last couple of years. And I think for a lot of NFL teams, it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. And that's been cooling the market for Jackson.
Help me here now, Aaron, real quick, because, when we don't follow the Falcons regularly. The Bengals did play the Falcons here last year, but that was, one game in, one game out, off you go. And, Falcons worry about who they worry about. Bengals worry about who they worry about. When I look at the moves that you brought up earlier, especially on the defensive side of the ball that have been made by this franchise, I mean, they're paying veteran players a lot of money. And you're expecting those guys to step in here, play well, provide leadership to a young team right away. Most of the time when you see teams do that, you're looking at a team that is trying to win right now. Yet you and I both know when you're asking a guy to be a full-time starter at the most important position on the field at quarterback, and it's only his second year in the league, and for all intents and purposes, he's a rookie, I don't know what the expectation level would be to try and win. Is it a little baffling to you about the way they're spending money in one regard, but yet they're going to put it all on a young quarterback to try and win now, or am I missing something?
No, I understand why you sort of see that as a little bit incongruent. I think it's really about raising the floor for the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons aren't that far removed from a season back in 2021 where a lot of people were baffled by how the fact that the Falcons were able to win 7 games when sort of a lot of people observed this team to not necessarily have one of the more talented rosters and one of the least talented rosters in the NFL. And I think for the Falcons, that money that they're spending is to try to, correct that issue, that no one's going to look at this Falcons roster any longer as one of the weaker units in the league. But I think at the same time, the Falcons aren't necessarily in that sort of let's win it all right now. Obviously, the NFC South is a division for the taking. The NFC is not necessarily as strong a conference as, the Bengals play in the AFC, particularly when you look at the quarterback position. So you could see a team like the Atlanta Falcons, and I think this goes back to the Lamar Jackson conversation, why a lot of people are baffled by why is no one pursuing Lamar Jackson, because that would be an absolute home run in the NFC given this current state of that conference. But I think the Falcons, having most recently been in sort of cap nightmare, with paying up a premium to their quarterback position with Matt Ryan, aren't necessarily willing to jump headlong in that. And I think because of that confidence that this team has internally in Desmond Ridder, which is clearly much more than I think what a lot of outside observers seem to have in Ridder moving forward as a starter, I think the Falcons feel like this is not as incongruent a bet going with a young quarterback on offense and having a veteran-laden defense. I think they really do believe that is more than enough for them to compete in the division and potentially at the higher levels of the NFC with time and development.
Yeah, I mean, that's the one thing. And I've always said all the years that I used to broadcast and did a ton of NFC South games, division games, it may not always be the best division in the NFC or the NFL for that matter, But the games are unbelievably competitive in that division. I mean, it's one of the more exciting divisions just to watch divisional matchups. But let's face it, all of a sudden now there are a lot of questions. They're going to be young quarterbacks. Looks like maybe C.J. Stroud or Bryce Young coming into the division. You have Baker Mayfield taking over, down in Tampa Bay, who, look, a lot of people around here in Cincinnati like to badmouth the guy, but he led the Browns to the playoffs and won a playoff game. That's all I know, and he played pretty well with the Rams last year. But it's not a division where you've got one or two juggernauts that you're trying to play catch-up with. All right, now that takes us to the draft. So this is now where you're going. 8th pick in the draft, I think it is, right? So what are you thinking they do? I mean, do they consider making a trade? Do you think they stay right there at 8? If they stay at 8, what do you think they're looking to do with that pick?
I think they're going to be looking to take the best defensive player available at that 8th overall selection. I think there's been a lot of talk about the Falcons potentially trading up for a quarterback. As I said, I think, again, that's sort of outside observers looking at the Falcons quarterback situation and not necessarily loving Desmond Ridder as much as the Falcons. I think the Falcons are more than content to stay there and just take the best defensive player available to continue that defensive rebuild and add some more talented young pieces on that side of the ball. And, whether it's going to be a local product like Georgia's Jalen Carter, if he slides a little bit in the draft, or Texas Tech's Tyree Wilson, the other pass rusher, or, another addition to the secondary where they could use another young corner opposite A.J. Terrell, one of their up-and-coming defensive stars behind Casey Hayward, an aging veteran cornerback. Someone like Oregon's Christian Gonzalez makes a ton of sense for the Atlanta Falcons. So I think they're going to probably stay put at 8, take the best defensive player available. They might contemplate a trade back if one of the top 4 quarterbacks falls to that point, and maybe a team picking behind them, a team like Tennessee or Washington or somebody like that is looking to move up in the draft, and the Falcons can put themselves, move back, still be able to get a good defensive player, maybe add early round picks in 2024. That is going to be very enticing option for them, especially even though they're confident in Desmond Ridder. You do want to potentially set yourself up for, future success if you want to potentially make a change at the quarterback position a year from now. Having that additional ammunition in the draft in 2024 totally makes sense. So I think the Falcons will probably stay put, take the best defensive player available. But if there is going to be a trade involving that 8th overall selection, it'll probably be more likely to be the Falcons moving back than necessarily moving up.
All right, last 2 things I want to ask you about, and we appreciate your time. Speaking of Carter, everybody knows the whole situation with, the tragedy that took place where a couple of young people involved with the Georgia football program lost their lives. It's a very sad thing, tragically sad, heartbreaking. Then all of a sudden, people said he had put on weight by the time of the end of the regular season or the end of the national championship season to all of a sudden his pro day and his workout day. What's a word on Carter? I mean, are these legitimate questions as to, this was a guy a lot of people were saying might be the first pick in the draft 2 months ago.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that NFL teams have to wrap their minds around. They have to really dig deep on the person that they're getting with Jalen Carter. Made some very questionable decisions on that fateful night back in January. And I think the main concern that NFL teams have, given that you're going to have a lot more time on your own, on your hands in the NFL, you're going to have a lot more money to spend. If this is a one bad night of mistakes that Jalen Carter make, or is this a pattern of behavior that he, with greater resources and assets that he may have as a professional football player, will you see this as a series of mistakes? And that's something that NFL teams are going to have to decide on their own. I think what we've learned in the past when it comes to, quote unquote character concerns in NFL teams, that NFL teams will basically look away, sort of turn the other cheek when it comes to that stuff. When it comes to character concerns, if you are a talented enough player. Mm-hmm. And I think in the case of Jalen Carter, he is one of those rare players that is talented enough that NFL teams will be willing to bet on the player on the field as opposed to worrying about the player off the field. How that affects his draft stock remains to be seen. I still expect him to be a top 10 pick, but it could work that some teams are a little bit more worried about it than before. And being, as you said, the guy that was potentially the first non-quarterback off the board at the very early parts of the draft, do we see, 3, 4, 5 other guys that are non-quarterbacks come off the board earlier than Jalen Carter, and that puts him in a position to slide a little bit on draft night.
Well, Aaron, we cannot thank you enough for your time, young man, especially on such short notice. Obviously, you're on your game down there for those that want to check him out. Host of at Locked On Falcons podcast. You write occasionally for the Falcoholic. So I'm sure you're going to be very busy here, young man, over the next month and a half, 2 months covering Falcons football.
I appreciate you having me on.
All right, Aaron Freeman, kind enough to join us. Great having him. And that's the way we start our draft coverage. Right here on Off the Bench. Now, that is a rock-solid opening guest right there. That dude's on his game.
Absolutely. I mean, we've really struck gold with a lot of these locked-on guests. So, he was very good.
He was
covered
great.
all the bases, especially Des Ridder.
He was great, and we'll circle back with him. Now, the Bengals will not play them again this season after playing the NFC South last year, but that's an interesting team, Casey. You said all along you thought they were an interesting team to keep an eye on this year, the Falcons.
Yeah, I mean, if I had a choice on who I was going to bet on to get over their win total, it's going to be the Falcons this year. I don't know what it is, but it's not high enough. I think I'm that high on them. I just like the moves that they made. For one, I mean, I know what type of player Jesse Bates is too. And the fact that they already have a developing safety that's a lot like – Richie Grant's a lot like Von Bell. So you might have a secondary that's really good with A.J. Terrell getting healthy. They might get Gonzalez from Oregon, and, I mean, you're looking at a scary, scary secondary. And if they can just find one more piece, an edge rusher, that defense is solved. It's fixed. And then you already got a pretty good running game for the Falcons.
Yep.
And you know who that sounds a lot like? It sounds a lot like an improved version of the Titans from a couple years ago, when they were the number 1 seed in the AFC.
Well, the big difference is, and I know you were always bad-mouthing Tannehill all the time.
Yep.
But, I mean, the guy, solid veteran quarterback, taking teams multiple times to the playoffs for Ridder. Not to say he can't do it. I'm never going to say Ridder can't do anything, because what that kid did at UC was fantastic. But I really think the key, when you're looking at Atlanta, what you're talking about, that division – stop and think about it for a second, right? The Saints
got worse.
Well,
I mean,
in some areas, we'll see. We know that Carolina, I shouldn't say we know. Didn't Carolina sign Andy Dalton?
I do believe so,
Okay,
yes.
so they signed Andy Dalton to be a mentor, a guy that whether they draft C.J. Stroud or Bryce Young or who knows, with the number 1 pick in the draft. They're not showing their cards yet as to what they're going to do. I think they said they sent 14 people to watch Stroud's pro day at Ohio State. Carolina did about a week and a half ago. And then, and then Baker Mayfield taking over in Tampa Bay. I know both you guys are south on Mayfield. I'm not south on Mayfield. Not yet.
What makes you not south on Mayfield?
Because I think the guy has proven – he's proven a couple of things. One, he is a tough guy. He may not be a big guy, but he is a tough guy. 2, he has taken a team, a perennial losing, dismal, awful franchise, great fan base, great stadium, incredible following. He took a team not only to the playoffs, he won a playoff game. I think last year he showed you flashes of some of the things he could do, playing for the Rams. Decimated team on the offensive line. Stafford's out for the year. They bring in Mayfield. He did some good things. I'm not saying he's an elite quarterback. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that I think if you were to stack up, at least for this coming year, I think Mayfield gives Tampa Bay a distinct advantage at the quarterback position. Not saying for 2 years from now. I'm saying for this coming year, even if C.J. Stroud is the first pick and he's the first starter from week 1, okay? But I'm just saying, I think, don't you guys agree with that? That of that group, that's a pretty I mean, it not a great, but a solid starting quarterback.
Casey, your thoughts? You're shaking your head over here.
Come on, Casey. He doesn't wear a Cleveland uniform anymore. Come on.
He was part of the stink. The stench. He was part of the stench.
And then, of course, you got Carr down there in New Orleans. So that's why I say, when you said they've gotten worse, I think they've gotten better at quarterback.
Yeah,
although I'm not a huge
right.
Derek Carr guy at all.
Yeah, you're right.
He would, you know what? Let me correct myself. Carr would probably give them a slight edge over Mayfield of the 4 teams in the division on paper, right? Because Carr's done the same thing Mayfield. Took him to a playoff game, right?
Yep.
Did that with the Raiders. So, you ask yourself, would you rather have Andy Dalton or Stroud or any of those other guys, Carr, Mayfield, or Desmond Ridder? What order would you take them in?
If I had to give an order, man, I mean, I know what all those quarterbacks are except for the rookies, and I might take. I mean, I don't know Ridder. We've only seen 4 games out of him, but I would take Baker Mayfield last. I will tell you that. There's no way I'm taking him over any of the rookies or Ridder. And I would put Carr probably either at first or second. And so that would leave Desmond and the rookies at second and third. I don't know where I would put those 2 at, but I know that Ritter's a winner, and I know he's in a system that probably will play to his strengths, create a lot of play action for him to run out of pocket and make throws on the run. They've got some really good weapons there. I'm really high in the Falcons, so I'm going to put them at 2. And I'm going to put the rookie at Carolina at 3, but it's not because of the skill level of that said rookie. It's more just the talent level the Carolina Panthers currently are at. But I know we've talked at the draft now ad nauseum.
We really haven't. We haven't gone deep into it like we are now.
I guess you're right. Where are you wanting to move forward here? Are we moving forward to the Reds, or are we moving forward?
Well, no. Where I want to go, though, you had brought up to me about your reaction to Katie Brown's comments. Since we're on football,
okay,
we're going to get to baseball and basketball a little bit in the next hour because we got Dave Kaplan coming up. All things sports, and specifically today, talking about the Cubbies coming to town to take on the Redlegs. By the way, Baker Mayfield in his career, 102 touchdowns, 64 interceptions. 21 of those 64 came his second year in the league.
Sounds pretty bad to me.
Okay. I think you're just upset with him because he was a Bengals slayer. True or false?
I have a tiny bit to do with it.
Slayer.
But he was bad every other game he played.
He was. He stunk.
He stunk. He stinks.
He came into L.A., had a great game.
Great game against the middling.
Yeah.
Not even middling. Pitiful Denver team.
Okay. All right. Okay. 31-38 in his career. Took a team 6-7 his first year, 8-10 his second, 11-8 his third, 8-8 before he went to Carolina before eventually joining the Rams. Okay. So you're saying here there were a lot of comments made by the Bengals owner. Mike Brown is the owner, but of course his family owns a team. His daughter, who's considered to be one of the sharpest minds, male, female, makes no difference in all of the NFL on multiple fronts. She's one of the 2 or 3 most powerful women in professional sports today. Not just football, but baseball, basketball, you name it. And that would be Katie Brown Blackburn. She answered a lot of questions at the NFL owners' meetings about a number of topics. She talked about Joe Burrow and his contract and how they're going to get going on this thing. There have been some preliminary discussions, but it's a contract that we hope everybody is going to be happy about and moving forward for a long, long time. But then, now I read these. And to tee everybody up here real quick in the chat and watching us online, Casey, you're saying you got a very different feel reading it as opposed to what we're about to hear. True?
Yes, very, very true. And I know I got to already apologize to the guys on the box lunch, but I think this is big enough that even that you haven't heard of this yet, and it is a very it makes you change your mind on the whole where you stand with Joe Mixon, what the Bengals think are going to do with him. Because, I mean, for someone that you think, like you said, you just teed it up perfectly. Katie Blackburn is a very well thought out, meticulous, smart individual.
Yep.
And if you just listen to this interview, it makes you really question what they're going to do with Joe Mixon. So I'll just play it up, and I'll let you listen to it for yourself.
All right, let's hear it.
Is he in the plans to be the starting running back this upcoming season?
Right now, he's on the team, and we're, we are going to count on him until that wouldn't be the case. But yeah, he's the guy. He's done a lot of great things for the team. I think he's still got a lot of production in him, and I hope his other issues all get resolved in a positive way. But we'll keep plugging along and hope that everything gets resolved for him one way or another. And,
So is that as it?
And that's it. That's
Ringing endorsement. Ringing endorsement.
That doesn't sound like a very confident, oh, he's on the team. Or like he's going to be our leader and he's going to be our starting running back. It sounds very not convincing, trying to hide something that maybe that there's more to it than the surface. What are your thoughts now that you've heard it in person?
Well, hearing it, you are 1,000% correct. Hearing it as opposed to reading it are two very different things, because that sounded about as non-committal to a player currently on your team staying with your current team as you could possibly get.
That sounds like somebody's getting asked to the homecoming dance, and they're going, wow, I don't want to say no to you in front of all your friends when you set up a massive homecoming proposal here, but maybe we talk about this later in private. And then you go back and you have a conversation, you're sitting in the car, and then she goes, you know what? I don't really think we should go to homecoming together. That's what that sounded like to me.
Well, but you know what happens, Paul? You get asked by somebody. You're kind of hoping somebody else is going to ask, right?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you kind of delay. And then the next thing you know, you ain't going with nobody.
Or that, yeah.
Right?
Sliding doors moment.
And I don't think the Bengals want to take a running back with the first-round draft pick. And I'm not saying they have to. But there aren't many guys out there left in free agency that you say to yourself, that's a difference-making running back.
Agreed.
I still continue to get back to the question we've asked on this program for 2 or 3 weeks now. Orlando Brown Jr., yes. Maybe the best free agent signing of any team in the league, especially when you consider the need to protect Joe Burrow. But are the Bengals a better team right now, today, than the team that ended its season in Kansas City at the AFC Championship game?
We'll find out.
We'll find out. I'm asking you today, are they a better team. Now, they still have Mixon on the roster, so it's not like they've cut him loose. So you still have Mixon in your backfield. He is still your starting running back. At $10 million, you got to pay him. See, are they better? They're better on the line, offensive line, right?
Yeah, I mean,
are they better in the secondary? No chance. None. Eli Apple right now, gone. Von Bell, gone. Jesse Bates, gone. Now, maybe these young guys play very, very well. There's still room in free agency to do a few things. Apple's not been signed by anybody, to my knowledge, right? Unless I missed something. They don't cover a lot of football down in the Dominican Republic.
I don't think so. I don't think he's been signed.
Okay. All right. Well, we got David Kaplan coming up here shortly. I want to get back to a couple of things real quick because you guys were talking during the Ham and Eggers segment about this whole sportsmanship thing. And, Casey, you posed a question about we're talking about the Women's National Championship game. Now, look. Dave Portnoy put up the video in a tweet, right?
I'll pull it up.
Okay. So take a look at this. And believe me, I love smack talking as much as the next guy, right? I love it. But if you're going to dish it out, you better be able to handle it. Now, this was a tweet that was sent out. There were two players, okay? One from Iowa, one from LSU. They did this thing that players do now, everything. Paul, give us a jargon on what this means.
Oh, it's a John Cena. You can't see me. The wrestler, John Cena. That's his trademark thing.
A wrestler in what? Is this WWE stuff or what is this?
Tom, you know John Cena.
No, I have no idea. I wouldn't know him if he walked in the door. Who's
Oh,
John
no,
Cena?
Tom.
You know John.
You know John
Lord,
Cena.
strike me dead. I've never heard that name in my life before. Who is
You
John
never even
Cena?
heard of John Cena?
Never ever heard of
Oh
him.
my God.
Oh, this is bigger than the
ridiculous.
segment we're about to do. We got to talk John Cena.
Well, this
gotta
could be
write
a
it.
teaching Tom. I have no clue who
Oh my
John
God,
Cena is.
Tom.
Hang on. I gotta actually play the
Holy
intro
what?
segment. Hang on. Let me pull this up.
Tom. I mean, I'm not even.
You
a
mean to
wrestling
tell
fan.
me that my life is altered to the negative by not knowing who John Cena is?
John,
Yes.
Tom, he's like a cultural phenomenon of the last 25
Cultural
years.
phenomenon of what? I'm being serious here.
I mean,
Of what?
he was a wrestler. He was back in the Attitude Era of WWE. But I mean, he was like John Cena, The Rock, all those guys. But then now he's a pop culture phenomenon.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm not a WWE guy in any form.
Well,
or
no,
fashion.
neither am I.
All right.
I don't know
okay,
if I've ever
all right,
watched it in my
okay,
life, but
all right. Okay, so go ahead.
John Cena.
Yeah. I'm gonna pull up some clips and I'm gonna play this intro segment for
All right,
John.
we got to
Cena.
make it. All right, okay, it's teaching Tom.
Yeah,
There's
that's
one
teaching
of those
Tom
that goes
time.
around on the internet.
Joe Burrow, Joe Shiesty.
Joe what? Is that the word? Is that the hip word? I don't even know what to say. What? When a viewer tells me that I'm trying to be hip and I'm not as hip as I think I am, that hurts.
John Cena, former WWE wrestler, is also known as a actor now.
Everywhere.
Everywhere. He's played in famous movies
He's all over the place.
like
I'm not stepping on
Oh,
your toes.
I can tell. There's
I'm
stuff
not
just blowing up the computer to
I'm
get
not-
to John
I'm not
Cena
stepping. I'm trying not to
information.
step on Casey's toes here because
Oh
I don't know
my
where he's
God.
he's played in movies such as Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles,
going. Oh no, you're doing.
Fast
Is it
You're
You're
any
doing a
wonder
bad
I
sell of
wouldn't
John
know? That's
Cena
real.
here.
That's
Fast
not a
and
good start.
Furious series, The Suicide Squad.
Okay, I didn't see that. I always wanted to watch that movie. Okay, go ahead.
To be very clear, Tom.
Somebody in the chat here, I'm not going to say somebody, I'm going to give a name. Of course, they're saying come out under the rock, all that kind of thing. But who was it? Someone said, Tom, you've missed nothing in your life if you don't know who John Cena is. But go ahead.
To be clear, like I can't stand wrestling. I've watched
Brian,
maybe 5 minutes of it in my life. I think it's dumb, but it is. But back when all these guys were really like when they were the stars of the show, it was a lot of fun. And I mean, I don't know. We don't need to go on about it.
No, but give me something to Cena here. Because I'm told he's in commercials and all this stuff, and I should know who he is. But maybe I'll know him if I see him. Go ahead. You got something on the guy?
Just pull a picture up. Yeah. Here, hold on. I'll pull a picture up for you. I'll throw him on the screen. I don't know if I can throw him on the. Yeah, here. You know John Cena. Oh shit. Oh, my bad.
Here we go.
You know, come on. You know that face.
Well, it's not on the screen.
Well, it's not on the off the bench screen, but everybody that's watching the show knows who he is.
Okay.
You know who this is, right, Tom? You've seen that face before.
Actually, to me, he looks like James Laurinaitis. So here he is right here.
See?
I mean,
he's
I understand the entertainment value of WWE, WWF, all that kind. I get it, okay? I get it. But I mean, me not knowing who John Cena is, and for the two of you guys to be beating me down, and many in the chat beating me down, get out under a rock. I mean, come on.
But,
come on.
This song, you've never heard this song? You've never heard this?
And his name is John
I have never
Cena.
heard this. No.
Yeah. I mean,
all right.
He's an icon in our.
He is an icon. I love John Cena. All right, go ahead. On to the
All
next
right, so
thing.
what's he before we get to David Kaplan, what's he have to do with this?
That's his thing.
That's
his thing.
That's his signature thing. Like, you can't see me.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So now this plays itself out in the Women's National Championship game, okay, where Caitlin Clark, I believe it is, a big star for Iowa, right? Does it during the game. Counterpart on LSU does it during the game, and you're thinking, okay, that's the end of it. But then the video at the very end of the game, as the final second ticks off and LSU wins a national championship, apparently one of the LSU players, right, follows around Caitlin Clark instead of celebrating with her teammates. She basically is stalking Clark around the court for a good 10 or 15 seconds and just doing this in her face over and over and over again, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. That was what happened. Yes.
Yeah.
And did you guys have a problem with that or no?
I didn't. In fact, I actually liked it. I mean, that's literally the exact same thing happened in the Super Bowl with Aaron Donald. He did the exact same thing. You can't see me, and started pointing at his finger for the ring. Like, I don't see a problem with it. And Caitlin Clark, she even did the whole "you can't see me" thing throughout the tournament.
Okay.
So I don't get what the problem is.
Okay.
With the, I can't remember the LSU player's name right now, but I don't see what the deal is with that. Caitlin Clark was made out to be this, and she is, phenomenal athlete, someone that was favored in this game, and
I don't think so. LSU was favored, weren't they?
I thought Iowa was favored.
I thought
was Iowa favored? Oh, okay.
So Iowa was favored, and LSU coming away with a dominant win. And I know that's debatable with all the refereeing mistakes and just how poor it was.
Yeah.
But
the real story of this game was the officiating. Like everybody wanted to make this end of the game situation what it was, and sure, it was a lot of discourse for a long time. Whatever. Yesterday, have your opinion on it. Whatever. The real thing that we can all agree on, though, is how horrific the officiating was in the game, and it was a bummer, honestly, because the women's game had gotten so much attention, mostly because of how talented this Final Four was, and looking at a South Carolina team. South Carolina was minus 200 pre-tournament as the freaking favorites of the tournament. Minus 200 versus the field. Mm-hmm. That's how good that South Carolina team was, and Iowa beat them on Friday night in the Final Four. And it was just it felt like for Caitlin Clark, she scored 40 points in that game, 41 points, however many she scored, and it felt like she had an off night. It felt like if she had gotten to the rim a little more, it felt like she left some points on the floor. Yeah. But I thought the story yesterday was really a shame for the women's game that had gotten so much attention and had made a lot of progress over the last month or so, really this season especially. That a storyline from the game was officiating. You hate that.
Yep.
You just really hate that in a game like that where Caitlin Clark gets called for that technical foul where she throws the ball to the baseline. That was unbelievable.
It is a shame.
It's hard to wrap your head around.
All right, before we get to Dave Kaplan, let's take a break. We're going to preview the Cubs and the Reds starting tonight down at Great American Ballpark. And we're still going to get back to this because I got people actually now coming to my defense. They can say, Tom, we get it. If you know who Macho Man Savage or Hulk Hogan, if you know some of those guys, real men.
Oh, my God.
Not some guy named Senna. Real men. Is it Cena or Senna?
Cena.
All right. He's no Hulk Hogan. Ham and Eggers.
It's that time of the show, the Ham and Eggers. These guys are great. Trust me, I would know. I introduce all the best segments.
Senna.
I love this show.
This is the best 2 hours of television you'll get every day.
This is the best 2 hours of my day every day. Yeah, Casey, I could tell you were trying to go somewhere with what you were about to say.
Oh, I was just John Cena to me, maybe it's just because there's tons of memes about him and the whole you can't see me thing, and he blends in, he's camouflaged, all that other crap. And the fact that he was one of the better wrestlers in our generation. Maybe we were a little too hard on Tom there because he's never watched it in his life.
Oh yeah, but you don't have to watch WWE to know John Cena. I was
looking at his movie list here and I was struggling to, the Fast and Furious.
Yeah, but he's just all over the place. He shows up.
Yeah.
He just shows up in commercials. He shows up.
He's in other
random spots. Look, I'm not a wrestling fan. I'm not I don't watch it. But he's the man. He's the man. Yes. Okay, so we have that. We have David Kaplan coming up in a little bit. We have Reds and Cubs preview, I'm sure, on Box Lunch today. Reed will be talking a lot more about that.
We'll have I don't know if you're going to go for a prop or what you're going to go for, but we have to come up with some baseball bets.
Yes.
At the end of our shows now.
Transitioned from college basketball bets at the end of the show to a baseball bet, so I have to start taking a look at that, which we will as this goes on. We do have Box Lunch coming up later today. That'll be immediately after. Back to our regularly scheduled programming on this show for the first time in what feels like forever.
Yeah, and I think we'll have more. We're going to try to have more guests on the show like Aaron Freeman.
Yes.
About other teams, and we're going to try to at least get a feel for what all the teams are going to do up and coming into the draft, but we also don't want to just drown people with NFL talk either. There's not going to be a whole lot except for draft talk, so, might as well get a good feeling of all the other teams so we don't sit here talk about Mixon and Jonah Williams for a whole month, which I know no one else wants to really talk about that. So...
Well, there are a lot of people who want to talk about it.
Well,
make no mistake about it.
They do, but I don't know if anyone wants to listen anymore. I think that's the problem.
The Cincinnati kid writes in, says, Senna has completed the most Make-A-Wish wishes ever, and that he is a great guy. So you know what? I think that's fantastic. Congratulations. That's good stuff. And Cincinnati kid, thank you for pointing that out. All right, is David Kaplan ready to go?
He
his car again?
He is trying to get situated. I think he is outside, though. He's outside in doing something. I lost him a second ago. I don't know if he's in a good area.
We'll wait on him. Talking about the Reds and the Cubbies. It begin tonight at Great American Ballpark.
It was a largest regular season crowd for opening day.
Yes. Even though it did not sell out till very, very late.
No.
But a huge crowd, beautiful day. Had a decent crowd, Saturday. Then yesterday, nice day, 14,000. I mean, there was a time, and it just goes to show you how far our expectation level has dropped around here. You look at 14,000 and you go around Major League Baseball. And again, I was with my dad and our family last night celebrating our son's birthday. And you know, I made the comment. You draw 14,000 a game, you're going to be the third lowest attended team in the National League. Third lowest. The only two teams that will draw fewer fans will be the Miami Marlins and the Pittsburgh Pirates. That'll be it. In the American League, Cleveland doesn't draw anybody, and all they do is win. I mean, it's pathetic. It is pathetic. The way Cleveland draws compared to the product on the field. It's one thing if your team stinks and people don't go, you get it. But Cleveland every year is in the hunt, and nobody goes. Oakland will be down there. Baltimore was for a long time, but they've got some reason to be excited after last season with the Orioles. Were they your team, Paul, being an elitist East Coast guy? You know, now that you're in flyover country?
Yeah.
Were you more of a Baltimore or a Nats guy?
Oh, Nationals.
Well, of course.
Yeah,
they were winning. They were winning.
Well, yeah, but I mean, just accessibility to the game. I probably for 14 years there rarely ever missed watching a Nationals game. Oh yeah, even in the doldrums of 08, 09, 2010. Still, yeah, they were great. And it's just like I said, it wasn't quite as easy going to the Nationals though as it is to the Reds, where you can pay $10 and sit right behind the dugout.
Yeah. Although it is nice in D.C. Where you can just get off that train and just walk right in the ballpark.
My dad actually, I said this while you were out of town last week. My dad worked doesn't anymore, but used to work right across the street from Nats Park. So we lucked out. We had free parking. We could just park in his office building in the parking lot underneath, walk straight across. But the train was great. The Navy Yard station right there across the way. It always stunk, though, if you did have to take the Metro. They'd shut the trains down.
Yeah.
You had to hope that the game didn't go to the 10th or 11th inning, or else you'd get that mass exodus. That was a concern in the World Series.
Yep.
And then I think I remember them extending the train so that nobody had to worry about it.
Yes, they did.
We do have Dave Kaplan in here.
I'm not sure.
Uh-oh. Well, I thought we did.
I think we might be having a problem. You think we've got Dave Kaplan lined up,
Well,
or we having some issues?
I see him.
That's okay. That's all right. We're fine. We do want to circle back around before the end of the show today. And, Paul, get your thoughts on the national championship game tonight. We've not talked about that yet. The other thing is this Viking thing.
Need your take on this, Tom.
I am reserving opinion. I'm going to sit on the sideline for a few days to think about this one.
Okay.
So David Kaplan, I mean, we talk all the time. He's Mr. Chicago sports. I mean, look. There are a lot of us around here that, in my case, used to be semi-big league operator. My dad is still a big league operator. But this guy has been a big league operator forever, so much so that he joins our program for the second time, moments after signing off his radio show in the Windy City, and he joins us in his car, David Kaplan. Capman, how are you, my man?
My guy, I've got the Chicago River right here. I tried to give you a great shot of the greatest city in the world, and for whatever reason, my Bluetooth wouldn't pick up, so I had to get in the car. I just want you to know what's like right here, Tommy. The greatest city in the world, baby. That's right, and you're going to get the wrath of the Cubbies coming your way.
Well, I got to tell you, well, then again, knowing you the way I know you, you're probably in cahoots with Lori Lightfoot. I thought maybe she had shut down, your Bluetooth or whatever it might be. So we'll save that for another day, as she is no longer running the greatest city in America, Chicago. Now look,
God.
we like playing this game of where you been, where are you now, where are you going? Okay, so let's start before the season ever begins. I know you felt very good about this Cubs team and at least moving forward after getting through the years of no more Rizzo, no more Baez, no more Lester, no more all those guys, right? Coming into the year, your expectation of your Chicago Cubs are or is?
82 wins, like 82 and 80, 83 and 79, and headed in the right direction, unlike some club that likes to eat Skyline chili and reside among the ne'er-do-wells in the NL Central. What you guys have done, or what they have done to the once proud Reds franchise, is embarrassing.
You're getting no argument out of me. And don't say you guys. I have, as my old friend Bob Brenly used to say, I have no fingerprints on this mess. N-U-N, none. All right, so the Cubbies, strengths of the team. For people who are just now sort of getting into baseball, okay, and there are a lot of appealing things about the rules changes that I think are going to make it a more appealing game to a lot of fans. Games are moving quicker, a lot quicker. Pace of play's moving. There's some things happening, some positive momentum for a change for baseball. You look at the Cubs, and the reason you think they're a slightly plus 500 team, at least on paper, the strength of the team resides where?
Starting pitching and defense. I think we have really good starting pitching and outstanding defense. You have a Gold Glove finalist in Nico Horner at second. You have a Gold Glove winner in Dansby Swanson at shortstop. You have a Gold Glove winner in left field. A former Gold Glove winner in center field in Cody Bellinger. A former Gold Glove catcher in Tucker Barnhart, who's not a great offensive player. I'll be the first to admit that, a former Red. Another solid defender in Yan Gomes. A former Gold Glove winner in Eric Hosmer. So we have got some really good defensive players. Marcus Stroman was simply magnificent on opening day. You got great starting pitching, 6 shutout out of Justin Steele. On Saturday, Tyone gave you 4 okay innings, 3 runs in 4 innings. And then some guy I never heard of, and I cover the damn team, Merriweather, gave up 5 runs in 2/3 of an inning. That guy needs to pack his bags and go back to Iowa. He was horrible.
You're already shipping guys out 1 game into a season? You'd want to ship out Hunter Green out of Cincinnati, for crying out loud.
Hunter Green throws 111 miles an hour and was a highly regarded prospect. This dude Merriweather I never heard of, and I covered the team. No, that was awful. What he did was awful.
All right, you got Drew Smiley, who's had his moments, certainly in the big leagues, who's getting the ball tonight against Connor Overton. Let's start with your just completed weekend. You gave us some of the highlights outside of Mr. Merriweather, but the bottom line is your Cubbies lose 2 out of 3 to the Craig Counsels of Milwaukee.
Okay, we got 2 homers out of Patrick Wisdom yesterday. This dude's going to hit 25 to 30 bombs this year and strike out 974 times. Good dude, plays hard. He's not your long-term answer at any position on the diamond. Solid, okay, fine. Dansby Swanson, 7 hits through the first 3 games. So it shows you that his 4 for $1 billion in spring trading really didn't mean a whole heck of a lot. I like what we're doing defensively. I like what our starting pitching looked like in large part. Just not real fired up about what I saw from our bullpen. Javier Assad pitched on Saturday and gave it up in his second inning of work. Cubs lose. They had a 1-0 lead in the 8th, lose 3-1. So we've got to be better offensively, and I hope we go into Cincinnati and paddle the Reds very effectively.
Well, you look at some of these pitching matchups, and I mentioned Smiley tonight. He'll be opposed by Connor Overton. Help me with Hayden's last name. who's pitching tomorrow.
Hayden Wisniewski, and you better understand, my friend Thom, that's probably a guy who's going to be on some National League Rookie of the Year ballots. This kid is a beast. I'm telling you what, we may not be able to develop our own pitching. We're getting better at that. But when they traded Scott Efros last year at the deadline with 5 years of control, Jed Hoyer said, you want him? 4 teams in the AL East, he told me the other day. 4 teams in the AL East are bidding to get Efros, who's a really good reliever. Unfortunately, blew his elbow out after the Yankees made the deal. He said, here's the cost. I want that guy. And they gave him to us. And Hayden Wisniewski finished last year in our rotation.
Yep.
He broke camp in our rotation. You're going to get a dose of Hayden Wisniewski tomorrow.
Look, at the end of the day, the Cubbies are one of the most highly valued franchises in all of professional sports. The owner, Mr. Ricketts, went out, spent a lot of money. He did what no owner has ever done, going all the way back to 1908, and that's win a World Series for the Chicago Cubs. He brought in a lot of big-time free agents. They also developed a lot of big-time players. Those days are long gone. How do Cub fans look at this, at the ownership and the franchise, knowing it's a franchise that, at least as far as the kind of money it makes, is not spending a ton of money?
So I'm speaking to you now as a fan, then I'll give you my professional perspective. As a fan, I like Thom very much. Like it. He gave me the greatest sports moment of my life. The Cubs could win the next 15 World Series, and if the good Lord willing, I'm alive for all of them, it would never top November 2nd, 2016, when they ended 108 years of idiocy, as I like to call it. It was insane. And to be there that night in Cleveland and to look up at my late father and go, Dad, we did it. It was unbelievable. But that said, Thom, to have to go through a rebuild of this magnitude twice in a decade with the revenues that the Cubs have is unconscionable. I know there was a pandemic. I know they lost, well north of $100 million. But guess what? Your franchise is worth $5 billion or $4.8 billion. You tighten your belt a little bit, but to go into the fetal position to the degree that they did, I thought was unconscionable. That's me, the fan. Me, the professional, will tell you they offered Chris Bryant a massive extension after the World Series. He said no, his right. He now plays for Colorado. Anthony Rizzo got offered $70+ million as an extension. He said no. They traded him to the Yankees. They offered Javi Baez a big extension, and Wilson Contreras and Addison Russell. All these dudes, except for Kyle Hendricks, said thank you, but no thank you. They were feeling their oats as members of the Chicago Cubs, world champs. They're young. I think if they could go back in time, they might have taken some of those extension offers. So I understand why the Cubs did what they did. I just don't think in this market with those revenues, and you know them as well as anybody, that Wrigley fan base is rabid. They spend money.
Yep. You
should never go through a full-scale rebuild twice in 10 years.
All right, last thing. Last 2 things. Number one, would you care to place a little 2 out of 3 wager on this 3-game series where if the Reds win 2 out of 3 or win the series, that, you buy me dinner at, say, Jeff Ruby's new joint downtown, and if the Cubbies win the series, I buy you dinner at, you pick the spot, you know the town much better than I do, and I take you out to dinner. Would you care to make that kind of wager, yay or nay?
I absolutely would, but I got a better wager for you. How about I ship you, it's called Tastes of Chicago, Lou Malnati's deep dish pizza, so that your family can partake, and I'll put some other goodies in there, Eli's cheesecake and Vienna hot dogs, and I'll ship all that to your house, but I don't think that's going to happen. And you got to ship me a case of Grater's ice cream because I don't want any of that Skyline chili.
You got a deal. We're on. All I want is a Lou Malnati's pizza. I don't want anything else. I don't want the cheesecake. I don't want any of it. I just want you just want graters, and I just want Lou Malnati's.
You got yourself a done deal. Bring it on.
All right, last thing before we let you go. We want to get you back for another time, if you would, to really get in depth on the Bears. What do you think they're doing draft day?
I think they'd like to trade down again from 9 and get themselves in the top 15, but get more draft capital. Look, I'm laughing at all the people that are betting the Bears to win the division. It's a bad football team right now. They got 10 draft picks. They have not addressed their defensive line. They still need a right tackle. Their wide receiver room is fine. It's better. DJ Moore's a nice player. They're treating it like we got Lynn Swann, Jerry Rice, and John Taylor all in the same room in this town. And you know me, I never get out over my skis. I'm telling you, this team is still dead last in the division.
All right. That's a Cap, man. Cap, you must have one of those. I talked about being a big league operator. I mean, you've been sitting in that same spot overlooking the river, which tells me the cops aren't going to come bother you. It's kind of like, if you're carjacking somebody in Chicago, the cops don't bother those guys either. So, I mean, maybe you can just sit right there and do whatever it is you want to do.
Well, I try to stay out of the politics on radio. I'm just hoping tomorrow's a better day in our city when the election is held.
All right. Well, get out there and vote, because I know you will.
100%.
All right. Capman, thanks for your time, brother. All the best.
Love
Godspeed
you.
ahead.
Best of Marty Brennaman. Best of Marty.
I was with the old boy last night.
That dude's the best, man. I love that guy. I had him in my studio. He walked from the hotel, came in my studio, and did an hour with me, and it was the most enjoyable hour I've done in years.
Yeah, well, he can do that to you. He can definitely do that.
The best.
Unless you're his son. And then he's on your ass 24/7. Outside of that, all's cool with the world. All right, Capman, have a great rest of your day, buddy.
I look forward to seeing you.
Okay, pal. David Kaplan, kind enough to join us from Chicago. Big league operator, Kaplan. Big league operator. I knew him when? I knew him when he was just some schmuck running around town, right? Doing college basketball and coaching basketball and all this kind. Now, the king. The king. I thought nobody could get bigger than Chet Kopic. He is bigger than Chet Kopic. And that's saying something in Chicago. And it couldn't happen to a better guy. So we thank David Kaplan for his time. All right. The Viking thing. I should ask Kaplan this question, if he's even seen this. Paul, what are your thoughts on the Viking helmet and celebration when the Reds have a player hit a home run? What are your thoughts?
They're having some fun. I'm in. Sure, why not? Leif Erickson's been a loyal member of this chat. Norse have had a successful year. We were in on the 1 p.m. Kirk Cousins train. It's been a good year for Scandinavian culture.
Yeah,
extends to the Reds.
As a former NKU grad myself, I like it. I like it a lot. The only thing that's left for them to do is to have a giant barrel of mead at the end of their dugout, so they can pour themselves a big glass after they knock one out of the park.
Speaking of knocking one out of the park, actually, well, wait. Let's get your take on it, Tom. The Vikings?
I told you, I'm reserving judgment.
Okay. Did you see down in Nashville, Joey Votto? First pitch he saw this season, home run?
I did.
Towering home run.
Yes, and good for him.
And
everybody's very excited about him coming back. And a lot of people, I mean, it went up to the last minute as to whether he was going to open the season with the major league team. And then because he was unable to play back-to-back 9-inning games, they decided to wait. But he's not going to be down there long.
Did you see Did you see him motoring home on that ball in the gap too?
No,
he was
I did
huffing
not.
and puffing. It was great. It was a fun clip.
Hey, he's almost 40. He's allowed to huff and puff.
Oh, I'm not saying a negative. It was funny. He touched home plate, went over to the on-deck circle, and just took a big old sigh of relief. Took a big deep breath. Get him the oxygen mask.
You want to know how green I am on baseball stuff? At first, when I saw that, I'm like, this has to be an April Fool's clip because he didn't play. This isn't even the Red Stadium. I didn't realize he was playing.
He is playing. He's down in the minors.
He's down in the minors.
Yep.
I just couldn't even fathom Joey Votto in the minors. But
yeah, it's just a rehab.
Yeah.
Guys get hurt, they go down there, they play, they come back up. Hayden, you guys brought up Hayden Wesneski, Tom. Wesneski was a trade piece, as Kaplan was talking about. He was a trade piece from the Yankees organization. He was in my league in 2021, and I saw him a couple of times, and he was by the end of the year, he had a rough start to the year in Double-A. He started 15 times that year in Double-A, but he had a great year. And I remember when he got traded, because we had all seen him pitch, and you could tell he had talent. The stats just didn't really back it up that year. And I remember when he got traded, it was a massive deal, and everybody in the minors kept talking about, man, the Cubs really got a good one. The Cubs really got a good one. So we'll see how it pans out. I wish I could go tomorrow night. Reed and I actually we'll be on the call together for a baseball game tomorrow night. I know he'll be down there tonight, but Wesneski pitching tomorrow. It'll be an interesting series here at the Reds and the Cubbies right away to get the year started.
It will be. It'll be fun. And I can't find where it is. Somebody made the comment. We were joking, and it's not a joking matter about crime, but you were talking about Chicago. I mean, go back and read the numbers, please. Please, just go do me a favor, okay? Article written 4 days ago, okay? %41 increase in overall crime in Chicago from 21 to 22. 3 of the 4 deadliest years in the history of the city. 2021 and the 21, 22, 23. Deadliest in the history, the last 2016. All right. Just go read the numbers before you spew off whatever it might be. All right. The national championship game tonight, Paul. Yep. You were saying, and I give you guys all the credit in the world when you're on your game, and will beat you down regularly when you're not. But you were saying, going way and back, and I remember actually texting you during the game when UConn played Xavier earlier this year. And I mean, UConn could not throw a ball in the ocean. And I wrote to you, how is this team ranked in the top 50? Right?
Yeah.
It was an ugly game. Both teams in the first half. I mean, look, it happens.
Yeah.
We're kidding around. It's tongue-in-cheek. But you were saying going back early in the year when they had the huge win, started off red hot.
Yeah.
Then they go through a very short lull, but a lull nonetheless. But you were saying all along, this is the team to watch.
Yeah.
And, I mean, this tournament has been it's like a pro team the way they're playing right now.
Yeah. Yeah, they haven't they have not lost to a team outside of the Big East yet this season, and they have beat every single non-conference opponent by double digits. They have not just beaten these teams, they have destroyed these teams. And you think about that Final Four game on Saturday night with UConn and Miami. Every time it felt like Miami, they made a couple of pushes in the second half, but they were only within single digits in the second half for 35 seconds. Think about that.
Yep.
Think about how many times sitting there watching the game, you're thinking to yourself, oh, Miami's made a couple of threes here. They went on that 7-0 run in less than a minute. Oh, they've cut it down to whatever it was, 9. They were only within single digits for 35 seconds in the second half. This has been a dominant run from you. It's not the most dominant run of all time by points or whatever. You look back at 2018 Villanova, that was a really dominant one. Even Kansas last year, low-key, if you really go back and look at it. I know the national championship game wasn't dominant. They needed a massive rally in the second half to win that game. But the rest of Kansas had a really good run to the title last year. But UConn is just making, like you say, Tom, this is like a pro-style team where they have shooters. They have the size. Donovan Clingan is only playing. John Rothstein talked about it last night. His numbers, if you look at Clingan, he's only playing like 13 minutes a game.
Yeah.
But if he was playing 25, 26 minutes a game.
Well, he will next year.
Yeah, you're talking about a player that's potentially like a generational talent.
Yep.
And I remember watching UConn back in Portland and just seeing their size. I hadn't seen, a lot of these names were new, and you're looking at a guy like Klingon, and I remember seeing them even just walk out on the court and think to myself, these guys are a professional team. And then Xavier beat them twice. Marquette beat them twice. They took 8 losses in the Big East, 7 in the regular season, 1 in the Big East tournament, but haven't lost to a non-conference team yet.
Isn't this the same guy, the coach for UConn, that said, all you got to do is get 3 NBA players and fill in with the rest of
yeah, that's basically what he said, yeah. He basically said, hey, look, it's – paraphrasing, he said it's not all that difficult when you have 3 NBA players and you have to fill in the space around them, and we've been able to figure that out pretty well. And
hey, look, Danny Hurley is, he's like his brother. I mean, they're both crazy on the sideline and all that kind of thing, and it make for great theater to sit there and watch them. And they're kind of guys you're going to love or you're going to hate, right? I mean, that's who they are. But, Danny Hurley just seems like a really nice story. Watched a long documentary on him over the weekend and some of the mental health issues I guess he went through while he was a player, and he was overshadowed by his dad, this legendary high school coach in Jersey, overshadowed by his brother, Bobby Hurley, right? Great player. Danny was a good player. But, he was coaching high school basketball how long ago? Danny Hurley, right?
Yeah.
And now he's in the national championship game. You got to feel good for a guy like that, right?
Yeah, and he's taken a lot of criticism for not being able to handle his emotion. You think back to that game at Xavier, really, where that was a close game down the stretch. It was tied with less than 4 minutes to go. And then Hurley picks up the technical foul, and Xavier ends up stretching the lead. I think Xavier ended up winning that game by 7 or so. And that was, at that point, the first loss of the season for UConn. And the knock on Dan Hurley was consistently that he could never control himself in the big moments, that he always either got a tech or he got overly excited and he wasn't able to lock it down and coach his guys up when they needed to in the final moments of the game. And now here in the tournament, I don't want to say the team hasn't needed coaching, but they have just run through this tournament. It hasn't even been close. I don't think one time, except to their credit, and this is where I say, to the Big East, it's coming. Rick Pitino is the only one that has even remotely made it interesting against UConn in this tournament when Iona was leading UConn at halftime.
Yep.
They were beating this team at halftime, and UConn, sure, they went on to win by 20. But I think it kind of goes to show what Iona and what Rick Pitino can bring. Obviously, one of the greatest college basketball, really greatest basketball coaches of all time.
No doubt.
But yeah, UConn is 7-point favorites in this game. The only thing that does make me a little nervous about that is just the style of play that San Diego State brings, where they try to slow it down. There's not a lot of possessions. They defend you hard. Good comparison to UC back in like the mid-2015s-ish. Like a Mick Cronin team where they just kind of get you down, defend. But I still think this is UConn's title to lose. What a game on Saturday, though. San Diego State and Florida Atlantic.
I felt so bad for FAU. They were the better team in the game. They were the better team the whole game. But it just goes to show you, one of you guys said earlier, all that matters is did you win or did you lose? And, I mean, they just dominated that game. And then all of a sudden, the thing that really stood out for me, tell me if you agree, most of the game until that stretch where they erased the 14-point deficit in a hurry, all the offensive rebounds were going to FAU, right?
Yeah.
They were getting every rebound, period. And then all of a sudden, San Diego State, and it wasn't because they were just crashing the glass. They were shooting a lot of threes, long rebounds coming out, right? Missed shot, long rebound coming out. And that's where they really made the turn in that game. And that's what worries me for San Diego State tonight. Yeah. UConn's just got so many massive bodies. Florida Atlantic was one of the smallest teams in the tournament. Might have been the smallest team in the tournament, right? I think they were physically the smallest.
That was Fairleigh Dickinson was.
Oh, okay, but FAU's not a big team.
No.
They had the big Russian kid.
Yeah.
But outside of that, they didn't really have much height.
Yeah. I think that this game tonight, I think there is a chance that San Diego State, look, San Diego State beat Alabama. So it's not like they haven't beaten they've earned their way there. I just think that the way that UConn is playing right now, they just look like they're playing on another level.
When I watch them play, all I could think about is what their practices must be like. Because there are very few college basketball teams anymore where you watch and there's a lot of depth, but you just look at the physical bodies. We talk about this with Houston, but we didn't see a lot of their bench during the year. I just thought to myself every time I watch UConn in this tournament, their practices must just be unbelievable. The competition in those practices. It's got to be just mind-boggling.
Well, that's a lot of times when you think back to the beginning of the season and you're playing those bye games against, so-and-so Tech from wherever state in the middle of nowhere, and you think to yourself, I know they got to sell tickets and it's nice to play somebody else, but the practices are more competitive than playing some of those teams. You play a 5-on-5 up in stores at practice, that's a whole lot more competitive than running yourself out there against the 280th ranked KenPom team. Hey, how about North Texas in the NIT?
The what?
Our Mean Green. You're North Texas Mean Green. They won the NIT. You were big on North Texas a few weeks ago. I tried to tell you about them. They won the NIT, Tom.
They did, or did they beat?
They beat another Conference USA team. They beat who did they beat? I'm blanking. I'm blanking. No clue. I watched the whole game.
Blank.
I'm watched the whole game, and I'm blanking on who they beat. Oh, UAB.
UAB, Andy Kennedy. Fighting Andy Kennedy's, right?
UAB, that's right.
That was a guy in between Hugs and Mick, right? Or after Mick?
Before Mick.
He was between Hugs.
Between Hugs and Mick.
Between Hugs and Mick. Yes, that's right. Love NIT basketball. I loved it when UC was in it. And after they lost to something called Utah Valley, I was rooting for them to win. I never heard who won.
That was their first nationally televised game.
I know.
Utah Valley.
I know.
Heck of a gym.
Beautiful. Look great. Great atmosphere. All right. Do we have a cherry on top today or no?
We do.
Before we get to boxed lunch today, Reed is going down to the ball game tonight. He's all fired up after hearing from his boy who is just drunk with Cub fandom and David Kaplan.
So this comes courtesy of Twitter, and it is from Saturday night. This is Petco Park. This is Padres Stadium during the Final Four, reacting, playing on the Jumbotron as San Diego State won the game. That was kind of cool. They were playing it during the Rocky starting lineups. San Diego State, local team.
Very cool. I was texting with my old broadcast partner, great Mark Grace, who is a proud alum of San Diego State. And when the game tipped off, he was the first person I thought of, and I shot him a text that said, please tell me you're in Houston. He said, nope, but if they make it Monday, I'm there. We have to try to get him on tomorrow.
Absolutely.
Gracie!
No
batting gloves.
No one had more hits in the entire major leagues in the 1990s than Mark Grace.
And doubles.
Doubles, too. I didn't know
Hits
doubles.
and doubles.
Boom.
Guy could hit, man.
Could hit.
And he could feel.
Yeah. That was a weak point in the Cubs' time. They weren't very good in the 90s. Late 90s, they were okay.
No, they stunk. I was there. They stunk. They were terrible. But they had some good offensive teams.
Yeah.
I mean, they had, for a stretch here, they had Sandberg, right?
Yep.
They had Gracie. They had some other guys I'm drawing a blank on right now.
Slam and Sammy?
Well, Slam and Sammy came on board early 90s for George Bell. And, they had some guys that could hit, but they couldn't win. And so you're going down there tonight, Reed Mouse?
Absolutely. Me and my wife are going to go down there. And
is she a Cub fan too? Or no?
She is by default. I think she'd be the fan of whatever team I would cheer for. So she's a trooper in that regard. But yeah, I've bought her Cubs jerseys. We're gonna rock on down there. She's let me name our dogs after Cubs players. Whenever we decide to have a child, he'll be named after Ryan Sandberg. So she's on board. She's fully on board. So we're ready to rock.
Imagine loving a team that much.
No. You
got to give it up for Reed. He's a real
Somebody
fan.
wants to know if Reed is wearing capri pants.
So speaking of my wife.
Or is that like the T-shirt you were wearing a couple of weeks ago and you just found those pants?
Well.
And you shimmied in there with a shoehorn, or what the hell did you do there? What happened?
My wife buys all my clothes, so whatever she tells me, I just live my day to day, and She tells me what to wear. She's at certain points just I guess my mom at times too, not just my wife. She makes sure that I do all the daily
I think
stuff.
you look good.
Thanks,
I mean, somebody brought it up on the Everett brought it up. Just want to know if those were capri pants.
They're not. They are full-length joggers.
Oh, I see.
Just
the little yeah. Oh, those are big league pants.
I don't know about that.
No. What I mean by that is not the way they look by any stretch, okay? I'm talking about, that's like all the rage right now.
Joggers.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. You got a pair of joggers, Tom?
No, but our son got a pair, and I looked at him. He put them on, and he was getting ready to go out, and I'm like, dude, what is this? He says, Dad, it's what everybody's wearing now. I'm like, really? He's got his own cash. He goes out and buy them. Go buy them. God bless him. But, I mean, now I know. Your wife, no doubt, picked those out.
You're a runner, and you don't have any joggers?
No, I have regular sweatpants.
So
that's
when
what
you're
we
running,
call them, like guys my age, you just call them sweatpants.
But
not joggers.
They're not tapered around the ankles, so they're just flapping.
I don't
in the
want
wind.
anything tapered at my age.
Huh.
Nothing.
All right, well.
No, nothing.
I'm telling you, Tom, get yourself a pair of joggers. Go out for a run. It'll change your running experience. You'll be shedding time on those miles, Tom.
I'm just hoping to finish the miles. I don't care about shedding the time. Just finish. Right?
You don't.
Yeah. See, you how old are you? 30 what?
30. I'm 26.
26.
My God, we're the same age?
I mean,
yeah.
I got you by 23 years. You'll find out that if you're going to go out on a 4 mile run, whatever it might be, half a mile run, you just want to finish the half a mile run when you're 59. You don't care about shaving off seconds.
You're like a 5 mile guy, though, right?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, no problem. No problem.
Don't sell yourself short, Tom. I know you running those the flying pig and everything.
No, not a chance.
All right.
Not a chance. Casey, thank you, young man. Thank you for the teaching, Tom, today. What's that cat's name? I'll have to check up on him later.
John Cena.
Which is it, Cena or Senna?
Cena.
Like you can't see me. Cena.
Okay, Cena.
I can't believe that you've never even heard of
I
John
honest
Cena.
to God, I have never heard that name in my life.
Really?
That doesn't mean if they put up something besides that mug shot that Paul pulled up after we found out he was in, what was it?
Is he Fast and Furious?
No, the animated movie.
Oh, Ninja Turtles.
Ninja Turtles.
But that's not like, that's a bad.
I was
The
just
first
reading.
thing out of his mouth.
I mean,
That
you
was the
guys are
first
laughing
thing.
at me for not knowing who he is, and then when I say, well, what's he been in? And you're like, well, the Ninja Turtles. Well, hell, I
was
can't
just the
believe I
first
didn't
thing.
know that.
You ever seen the movie Trainwreck?
Yeah, they did a horrible job, if
That
I'm being
was-
frank, of selling that. I mean,
Oh, that was the first
you
thing
probably
I saw.
should
have
His name
known
was
John
Fast and
Cena.
Furious.
Trainwreck was
probably should have known John Cena, but when you threw it back to that desk over there was scrambled eggs all over the place. They had no idea what to come back with.
Problem
None.
is, I was trying to think of something that Tom would, not knowing wrestling. Like I was trying to think of something.
I
and then-
knew some of the real men, the Rowdy Roddy Pipers and the Hulk Hogans, Andre the Giant. I know all those guys.
John Cena has won the most world championships. He passed Ric Flair, all-time world champions. 16
I'm glad
time.
I know that now.
16 time.
Okay.
Big WWE news today, Tom. They got bought out by UFC. I don't know if you saw that.
I did. It's a big deal.
Yeah, they merged.
Yeah. Dana White.
Yeah. They gonna start staging UFC fights now?
I don't think so.
May have to go down there. All right, boys. Casey, Paul, thank you. Look forward to catching up tomorrow. Good stuff here today. Box lunch. What's on the menu here, men?
Some Chatterbox Idol, Tom. You were gone when I brought this thought up the other day. I just said, would it be possible for us to put out a link, like a job posting, and just a thought or an idea? And I got the opinion of the chat in the room. The more we talked about it, I was like, why not? Let's do this. So, unbeknownst to you, we put out a job link that's Cincinnati Sports Talk. And we're going to let as many people sign up over the next, we only got a couple more days for people to sign up. And we're going to select the top either 10 or 15, haven't decided yet. And we're going to just let them come and do a show. And if we think that they're relatively decent, they'll move on to the next round. And then
Fantastic.
At the end of it, Maybe we'll give him. I think the plan is to give him
give him off the bench.
A 30-day. Yeah, we'll give him a 30. No. We'll give him a 30-day little internship, and we'll see how they do.
I think that is a fantastic idea.
Maybe they do so well that they stick.
I think it's awesome. Great opportunity, right? There you have it. And where do you go?
Well, we're gonna post the link.
Okay,
Casey's got it. He'll pin it in the chat. And I'm gonna do a quick little hit on that. Let everybody know. We'll put it on social media. Try to get as many people to jump in there. I think it's gonna be funny because I think just like American Idol, there's gonna be some people that get up here, the lights come on, and people will probably have fun at their dismay. But we'll probably have a couple good ones if we're being frank.
I guarantee you. There'll be quite a few good ones. I guarantee it. All right, boys. Yeah, Boom Shakalaka says that's a $250,000 paid internship, right, Mr. Fowler?
A couple zeros missing.
Okay. All right. All right, boys. See you tomorrow. Gentlemen, it's time for Box Lunch. Here we go.
I must admit, I didn't think much of this show the first time I laid eyes on it. Seemed like a bunch of stiffs wasting nice microphones.
The worst trade of all time happened back in 1803. Go ahead. Napoleon Bonaparte traded the Louisiana Purchase for $3 million. Napoleon, what happened? Half the country for $3 million. You can't even get Tucker Barnhart for $3 million.
Then I came to realize these guys are funny.
And Justin Fields have identical stats the last 5 weeks about throwing the football. This guy, okay,
and
folks,
are
is a
some
fidget
of the best
spinner.
gamblers I've come to know.
If you're betting on USC and or TCU, let it be known you are a square.
TCU is going to hammer this team tomorrow night.
And I hate to hear that.
Tomorrow
when we come back
afternoon.
in here on Monday, you're going to be happy as a lark because USC lost, but you're going to be wrong about TCU.
Get ready for the most useless hour of your day. It's time for Boxed Lunch, presented by Betfred Sportsbook. Now, Casey, run that track.
This kind of hits, Casey.
There we go, Casey. Copyright free.
This kind of hits, if we're being honest. I just imagine Casey running through every single one of these tracks, hitting play. Listen to about 10 to 15 seconds of each one of these tracks, realizing if he likes it or not. Probably got like every bit of I gotta give it to you, Casey. I don't know how long you take to listen to these royalty-free tracks, but that one wasn't bad. That one wasn't bad. I don't know if it's as good as Tom Petty, but it's not too bad. All right, let's get into it. Most useless hour of your day. I got some relatively big news today. Thank you, as always, to Betfred Sportsbook, the sponsor of the show, Box Lunch. We'll get into a little bit of them later. I know we were all somewhat let down on opening day, but we're back here on Monday, and you know what? The Cincinnati Reds are in first place in the NL Central, so we're just going to say that as long as we can because we know what the reality is. It's probably not going to be able to be said for too long, so we'll keep it going. You can see the link right there. Casey just put it in the chat. That is the link for Chatterbox Idol. I am going to do a little bit of a spiel here that we'll probably clip up and hopefully put on social media. But listen, one of the things that happens when I tell people what I do or tell them what my job is, the first thing they always assume or say is that, oh man, that must be fun. That must be nice. That must be an easy job. And you know what? For all intents and purposes, they're relatively right. But here's the thing. I always am asked, do you have any opportunities? Can I intern? Or what could I possibly do to help out and maybe get my foot in the door? Well, here's the deal. Relatively straightforward. There's a link right now on Indeed that's in the chat. We'll put it out on social media, and that you click on it, put your resume in there. We're going to select the top 15 people, and it is going to be as strict as it can possibly be. We're going to put you right here on this set. You're going to do your own show, your own bit. And we'll let the chat decide whether or not you stick for the next round. And if you do, we'll do one more round, and then we'll select the winner from there. It will be a paid internship, although it will not be what I would call
lucrative,
life-changing money. But you know what? It'll be a little bit of a paid internship, and we'll see if you stick. And if we think that we got some momentum, we can go out and sell the show. Next thing you know, you might have to tell your boss that you currently know that you're going somewhere else. We'll see. But from now on, maybe we do this. Maybe. This is a big maybe. Maybe this is what we do once a year. Maybe this is how we add talent around here. We don't go around looking for people with great resumes. Why would we do that? We'll just hold Chatterbox idle every year. Find our talent within. They do it for tryouts for the Reds, right? You can go down there and try out for the Reds.
I think Everett brings up a good point here. Leif Erickson should get all veto power on decisions when it comes to Chatterbox idle and other things.
I'm a big fan of Leif Erickson.
Yeah, could be a possibility.
He's a leader, man.
Leif Erickson, proud of him, as you should be as well. All right, let's jump into the next subject, Chatterbox changes, because this kind of goes right in line with the opportunity that exists with Chatterbox idle. So here's the situation. You've heard me say this last week, filling in for Thom. This is relatively difficult to manage, hosting a show, doing a good job, and then on top of that, going around doing some of the things that I need to do. Having said that, today, and it's not like I'm going anywhere. I'll probably pop in here from time to time. Today is going to be my last show until farther notice of Box Lunch. I do have plans on still doing content in some form or fashion. Obviously, I'm doing Chatterbox Reds with Nick Kirby all year long. But we're in a position now where I do want to make some elevated changes going into this summer. And I know that people are asking for merch. We're going to get some merch. I like to get some written content, create a whole new website, have a little bit of maybe a multimedia blog type, and then on top of that, elevate our YouTube channel and bring you more Cincinnati sports content in a bunch of different mediums. Relatively speaking, my job, although it is fun to sit up here and talk in a microphone, my job more importantly is to try to put people in the best position to win here. And on top of that, make Chatterbox as good of a company as we can possibly make it. So that's my number one goal while I sit here. So I know that it sounds as if I'm doing something that might be of a degrading thing. However, to be honest with you, as I've said before on this show, we have a lot of talented people here. They'll fill the void. I'm not worried about that. But I do need to try to elevate what we're doing around here, and I think that the summer is an excellent opportunity for that. And to be quite frank, with Chatterbox Reds, on top of the fact that having to do this 3 times a week, it makes it very difficult for me to go around and do the things that I need to do. So, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to make a bang going out of the show in the last time, because there's a couple things that happened over the weekend that, I don't want to say disappointed me, but I did see the chat this morning saying some crazy stuff with the Viking helmet. It's a Viking helmet. Who gives a rat? I mean, that's where I'm at with it. I know that some people they might find it a little distasteful if the Reds are down 10-2 and there's a solo home run, and the next thing you know, they got a Viking helmet on, they're putting a cape on, and everybody's having fun. I just don't really. I guess my point is I just don't think I care enough to make it a talking point. So there it is. That's what I have on the Viking helmet. I'm sure Leif Erickson probably feels the same way as I do. Let's get into the Clark controversy. We'll go around the room as always. We got Paul Fritchner in here, Reed Mouse, and Casey McAllister. And I heard a little bit of talk about this on Off the Bench. I think that if you are in a position, and Caitlin Clark, to be fair to her, did not say one thing about how it bothered her in regards to what Reese did of LSU. I understand why, if you're just tuning in, you might have a little distaste for what you've seen, because Angel Reese kind of went a little bit over the top with it. But at the same time, if you're going to dish it out, and that's what Caitlin Clark does, she dishes it out, you have to be able to take it. And let's be honest, Caitlin Clark is the reason that most of the people tuned in to watch that basketball game last night, so she should hold her head up high regardless of what happens. However, Angel Reese has every right to do what she did. And at the end of the day, who cares? If you're going to get into the Dave Portnoy thing, I've seen him do this time to time. The reason Dave Portnoy was acting that way at the beginning was because he had a large, substantial bet on Iowa. And then you turn that around, and he realized he was getting attention for the way that he was acting towards this quote-unquote classless operation. So
Portnoy does what he always does, which is try to seek as much attention as you possibly can, because that inevitably bad press, good press motto, which is all press is good press, that's what he always does. So I don't even read into all that. I know that it got blown out of proportion is what I'm getting at. And I feel as if LSU deserved to win the game. Paul said it about as eloquently as you could say it before the show started. The talking point, for the most part for me, could have been the refs. It doesn't mean the refs made one impact, one iota on the eventual outcome of the game, because they did not. LSU played better. They hit their shots. I should know the girl's name that came off the bench off the top of my head that scored 21 points, was perfect from the field. She was 7 for 7 from the field, 5 for 5 from 3. I don't know her name, so my apologies to her. But I'm not going to sit here and think one iota about that. That was that almost is a non-talking point. That's almost to where I'm at in this whole situation. I get why it got blown out of proportion, but I'm not going to sit up here and act like woe is me for Caitlin Clark or Angel Reese. Angel Reese is probably a fine human being. Caitlin Clark's a fine human being. They were competing. That's what competitors do. They get a little excited, and I think if anything, it's good for the sport. Although I have one problem from yesterday. One real problem. That game can't start at 3:30. It's the biggest. That in all honesty was the biggest event going on that day yesterday. And there was a lot of things going on. There was Major League Baseball. There was the PGA Tour. Whether you want to laugh about that or not, it still was going on. The Valero Open was a thing, right? What am I missing here? You had obviously the championship. I'm missing one other big thing. You had NASCAR on. So there's a lot of major sporting events going on at one time, and the event can't start at 3:30. If that starts at 7:30, 8 o'clock, then the viewership is even greater, in my opinion.
You think so?
I think so, yes. You think otherwise, and if you do, that's great. Why?
I went back and forth because I just assumed that it was going to be a night game. And then I checked the TV and realized it was at 3:30. I don't know. I'm curious to see the numbers, because I do think that there's a happy medium between doing it at 3:30 in the afternoon and doing it at 9:20 on a Monday night. Yeah, maybe doing it at 6 or 7 could have turned out a little bit more, but I don't know. I don't know if I hate that it was at 3:30 in the afternoon. But I'd have to see the viewership numbers, because if you're going to ask me, it'd probably be at 6 o'clock.
You missed the NBA. That's the other big one that was going on. All the NBA games.
Understood.
Yeah.
We do cover NBA
we all know what happened, right?
Yeah.
Sunday Night Baseball was going on ESPN. They probably didn't want to shift that around. They didn't want to mess with that. They knew that was on their main channel. They also probably had their plans to have the K-Rod broadcast, which I don't know how many people want to watch that and or watch it. I'll be frank. It's not that I don't even like Alex Rodriguez. I think it's his voice that gets me. I just don't like the way he sounds. He also tries to come off as like funny from time to time, and he's just not humorous at all. He's not funny. He doesn't have it. Whatever it is, he doesn't have it.
He's putting on an act, and he can't do it. He can't do it, and he needs to just, honestly, what would A-Rod would be great if he wants to maybe lean into something, is we already pretty much all think he's probably a pompous asshole anyways. Maybe he leans into that. Just be the villain on these broadcasts. Just be a little bit unlikable instead of trying to be so he seems like a politician is what he seems like.
It's a very good way of putting it. He does come off as a politician. In fact, if he was running against Ted Cruz to bring politics into this in Texas, that would be one massive face-off against each other. It'd almost feel like they both have the same type of dialect, the way they talk, the way they act. Not saying if I like that or not. Just saying that's what they remind me of. Not going to get into Blackburn audio just yet, but I do think that for all intents and purposes, the ESPN, who had the broadcast rights to both, they decided that they wanted to show Major League Baseball at night. I think that was a relative mistake. We'll see what happens when the numbers come out. I think the numbers will still be good because that's how big of a draw it was. I just think they would have been bigger if it was later in the evening. And my main argument to that is, if it was such a good opportunity to play it in the middle of the day versus at night, then they would do all of their big events at that time frame. But they don't, do they? They play them on Sunday nights. They play them on Monday nights. Why does the NCAA football championships get played on a Monday night instead of a Saturday mid-afternoon like they do all year long? And the answer is quite simply, there's nothing else going on at that specific time, so everybody would tune in. So I was a little disappointed in that. I thought that the Kim Mulkey lady is obviously an incredibly good coach. She could easily rub people the wrong way. There's no doubt about it, the way that she has her antics on the sideline. And I think the biggest disappointment for the most part was that the referees were even a relative talking point into some game that they should have never been. You know who else is a talking point that we will get into maybe a little? Maybe I'll save it for the Final Four, but do not let me forget about talking about high knees. Because that guy, he's taking his game to a whole nother level, let me tell you.
The knees are getting higher?
The knees are getting higher. It's unbelievable what Jeff Anderson has been able to accomplish this year. I mean, he takes it. You think that he's at this level in regards to just ridiculousness? He takes it to a whole nother level when he gets to the Final Four. And if he's calling that game tonight, do we know what the referees are tonight?
No, he won't be doing it tonight.
All right, good.
I don't know who it is, but he won't be on it tonight.
All right, fair enough. Let's get into the Blackburn audio. I know many people that are watching probably already heard this, maybe on Thom's show Off the Bench. Casey, I don't know if you still have it, but go ahead and just run it again for those that may or may not have heard this from earlier.
As it stands right now, is he in the plans to be the starting running back this upcoming season?
Right now, he's on the team, and we're, we are going to count on him until that wouldn't be the case. But yeah, he's the guy. He's done a lot of great things for the team. I think he's still got a lot of production in him, and I hope his other issues all get resolved in a positive way. But we'll
get to it, Katie.
Keep plugging along and hope that everything gets resolved for him one way or another. And
So is that
all right, one of two things could be here. And this is an angle that I don't think many are taking. I want you to pay attention to what I'm getting ready to say. Joe Mixon might be safe, because one thing that was going on in that clip was the fact that could have been her son and or daughter playing in the background. It sounded like they were having one great time. You could hear some bangs going on. Maybe they were playing with some stuff they weren't supposed to be playing with. Katie's attention was just completely not focused on the question, and she was trying to figure out whatever the child was doing behind her. And that's why she was slow to getting to the fact that Joe Mixon was still on the team. He's our guy. We'll see about his situation when it gets resolved, one way or another. Hey, you've heard me say this from time to time, maybe every single show for the last 5 shows. This is not a complicated thing. Don't let the blinders cloud your judgment. He's either going to take a pay cut or he's going to get cut. It's as simple as that. He's not playing for the amount of money that he's currently on his contract. I think that the telling thing is going to come to draft day. That's where it's going to lie with me. And I think the Bengals are going to show their hand on draft night of whether or not Joe Mixon will be a part of this team or not. If they select a running back in the first 3 rounds, I think is the number that I've gotten in my head. Round 1, 2, and or 3. If they decide to select a running back, I think in their mind they think that Travion Williams could also be a pretty decent player. I don't think, I'm not saying that he will or won't, but to Reed's point and what he's brought up from time to time on this show, running backs in this league are a dime a dozen. Wouldn't surprise me one bit if Travion Williams comes out next year and he has a quote-unquote breakout year, just because he's running behind guys that can block. And guess what? He's an athlete, just like there's a lot of athletes in the NFL. So if I'm Joe Mixon right now, I guess the main question I would have for everyone around the room, if you're in Joe Mixon's shoes, I don't know how much leverage you truly have at the end of the day, but I would at least be trying to get some kind of answer as to where do I truly fit in this system and or franchise right now? Are we just maybe you'll keep me, maybe you won't, or where? Because right now it feels like he's just He's got to hang out until June 1st is the date, right, Casey? Is that the date?
Yeah,
so
June 1st.
He's got to hang out until June 1st, and then he's going to figure out what his fate is with the Cincinnati Bengals.
What I guess my question to you, Trace, is what was your, if you could sum it up in like one or two sentences, what was your takeaway from the audio from this Katie Blackburn audio? Do you think she was hiding something? Do you think, what was your biggest takeaway from the audio itself?
I think the audio said two things to me. One, Katie, I think this is my complete opinion, of course, of what this is. Mm-hmm. I do not know anything factual what I'm about to say. But I think sometimes in life you get asked a question about something that you just want everyone else to use their own judgment on, and that way you don't have to truly answer it. So if you ask me a question that puts me in a really, really tough spot as a executive and or leadership position, you can't come out, and as a reporter, I can't come out and say, no, Joe Mixon, we can't keep him. We're going to cut him. Have you seen what's going on? There's no way we're going to pay a running back $12 million. You can't say that, and you hope, I think from her perspective, this is me reading into it maybe way too much, I think she's tired of the question. She wants people to logically think for themselves of whether or not Joe Mixon is worth the amount of money that he's being asked to play for, and she's saying in a nonchalant way that, unless he wants to take a pay cut, he's going to get cut. And the off-the-field issues have not helped the case. And we're in a position now where we're trying to find the next option. That's how I looked at it. Now, I'm not saying that's what she said, but I almost feel like in a roundabout way, she was trying to say it as nice as she could, which is why it took her 10 years to feel like to answer the question. She literally was in her own brain trying to formulate a way of saying it without saying it. Maybe I'm reading way too much into that, but that's what I took away from that audio clip. And also, whoever leaked that audio, that seems like a really bad idea. Yeah. You have access to obviously being able to talk to Katie, and maybe the lady that was asking her the questions wasn't the one that leaked it. Mm-hmm. But I'm telling you, whoever the lady was that was interviewing her has to feel absolutely awful, and she has to know that whatever relationship she had have been severed for that. And it wasn't even like that was a huge gotcha thing either, right? Like if you're gonna severance relationships, I would hope that you'd have something a little bit better than that to severance the relationship. Is that too harsh? Do you think that she's in trouble for doing that?
I don't know how this whole thing got leaked, but yeah, listen, quite honestly, the first time I heard that audio was when it was played on Off the Bench earlier, and it definitely, I don't want to call it a nothing burger because it is just her trying to talk through a very difficult situation, and she's tiptoeing around landmines when she's giving her opinion on the whole thing. And yeah, you can read into it a little further and go, what is she trying to say here? What is she really coming out saying? But at the end of the day, we're just circling around what we've been talking about for 3 weeks now, and maybe even longer, about the whole Joe Mixon situation.
Right.
Is that the current situation of him making $12 million cannot stand. There's 12 routes you can go down when it comes to this Joe Mixon situation, and the one that cannot happen is we go into next year with him getting the exact same pay that he's currently due to get, $12 million. And I think everyone knows that.
Right.
Joe Mixon is looking in the mirror, and he knows that. Maybe he's holding out hope, like maybe I don't know, maybe I'm worth $12 million. I don't know, but I think even he knows that that's the one route that cannot happen here.
Right.
So we're just circling around the same conversation that we're always having. And you're right. I think it tells a lot about in that second day. I don't think the Bengals are going to take a running back day one in the draft, but that second day, second and third round, we'll figure out all we need to know about Joe Mixon and whether he's coming back or not. Because that's the real question. Not that he's going to be making $12 million. Is he going to take the pay cut, or is he just going to get cut straight up? It's cut two ways.
Yeah, and they're not going to know the decision, or the Bengals aren't going to know the decision until after draft. And that's what this comes down to. So it's a simple solution. It's pretty cut and dry at this point for me. The Bengals are going to bide their time because they can. They're going to wait until the draft comes. They're going to find out what they decide they want to do from that running back room on draft day. And then after draft day is when the Cincinnati Bengals will meet with Mixon, and they'll either cut him completely or they'll try to renegotiate the deal. and they have all the leverage. We know this. The Cincinnati Bengals have all the leverage when it comes to Joe Mixon, because you have to ask the question, if you're Joe Mixon, what other team is going to pay me more than the Cincinnati Bengals is the main question I would have. I don't know if we have that answer off the top of our head, but let's be frank, Casey. You know this league pretty well. How many teams are looking for a free agent running back that's 28 years old? Or is he 26 or 28?
26.
So 26, going to be 27 years old, which is still, I think that's, to be fair to Joe, there's some years left. I don't think he's completely on the deep end here, but you still got to find somewhere that wants to pay you, and somewhere that not only wants to pay you more than the Bengals, but also has room in their running back room.
Yeah, and I mean, also, like, most of those teams by the end of the draft will have spent to the cap, or they'll probably be targeting other positions that other players will get cut after the draft that are more important, like edge rusher or tackle or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're pretty much hitting the nail right on the head here. They're going to wait until the draft. I don't think the reason why she said it that way is because they don't know if they'll get a guy in the draft. Maybe they don't, and then they want to keep him. So that's kind of like, in a way, it's smart. It's I know it sounded really bad, but I think it's not supposed to be leaked, and I'm not sure if we go back to that. Like,
well, Steve said it was Kelsey Conway, which she's her job is safe. And Jay Morrison was there asking questions as well. Not to cut you off, Casey, but I mean, so it's clear that
there was more people there.
There was more people there than just her. I just wonder. Who knows? Maybe it wasn't quote unquote leaked. It felt that way.
Right. Because usually we don't hear from her a lot. Like, we don't hear her voice. We usually just read her words. So I don't know. I think you hit the nail right on the head, though.
Yep. Everett says no Masters topic. Hey, listen, I will conclude the show right before the wheel of lunch with a little Masters talk. Listen, I love the Masters. I was going to ask Thom before the show started. I forgot to ask him for off the bench if he's a Masters kind of guy. Don't know if he tunes in on the Thursdays and Fridays, or if he's just one of those Sunday afternoons the Masters is on. So I'm just going to flip him on kind of guys, because you almost have sports fans in general are cut between those two cloths, in my opinion. You have people that love it, like myself, who are going to eat it up, and they're going to watch probably all 4 days, as many holes as they possibly can. They're going to get on the Masters app and they're going to watch. And then you have people that, quite frankly, it is what it is. They'll see the ESPN leaderboard on Saturday. They'll keep an eye on it. They'll know who it is. And then Sunday comes around, and at about 3 o'clock, they'll flip on the channel and they'll watch the last 9 or 10 holes of the Masters and see who wins, and then they move on. And I think that's pretty much cut and dry of the two types of people that watch the Masters.
I told this story to Spur earlier, and I put it in the chat, but I was out getting beers with my father-in-law last night, and he's a great guy. Doesn't care a lick about sports. Like, he's very into other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But he drops this story on me because he sees on the TV the Masters commercial going up there. He's like, "Oh yeah, Masters is this week." When I was in the Army, we were stationed down there in Augusta, Georgia, two straight springs, and yeah, I went to the practice round 2 straight years for $5 or something like that. And I was like, man, I have been with your daughter for 10 years. I've discussed so many stories, and now you're just throwing on. He's, yeah, I've been to Augusta National twice. Just out of nowhere, just threw it on there, and he's like, yeah, it's a really nice course. And I was like, Scott, I think you're undermining it just a tad bit here. Blew my mind that I've never heard that story, that he's been to Augusta twice.
So Augusta National, for those that don't know, back in the day, they actually used to go around and they used to try to give away tickets, believe it or not.
Yeah.
They would travel kind of all over the region, and they would try to give away tickets to get people to come down there and check it out. And, it's one of those situations where, yes, the course is nice, but they had this perfect storm between the fact that the TV coverage of the Masters picked up, and I feel like anytime TV gets involved and they want to make it a bigger deal than maybe it was before, TV is like this accelerator. It's the proverbial gas on the fire of any type of event. So the Masters became a thing. Ticket prices, my dad used to say, were $35 not that long ago to watch, a Wednesday practice round. I checked ticket prices to watch a Wednesday practice round this year just because I was interested. Curious, $850.
So prices have changed
just
in the past 40 years since he
I know. I actually think that my dad went when he was just out of college. That was 20 years ago, somewhere in there. Right. So, yeah, it wasn't like – I think the Masters have just blown up. Some of that's Tiger Woods, if we're being quite frank. I think Tiger Woods elevated golf to a whole new level. You can love him or hate him. Doesn't matter. Tiger Woods genuinely raised the level of golf interest by tenfold. And now I think golf broadcasts, as I brought this up before, I know I keep saying it, television is a very important thing. When they started to be able to put the shot tracer live on the screen for golf tournaments, and they were able to kind of get what I would call the elevation of golf broadcasts, that has been night and day, comparatively speaking, to 15 years ago, even 10 years ago. Golf broadcasts are unbelievably better now. And that's why it's grown, because it's a little more digestible when you watch it. It's much more accessible. And at the end of the day, I think the biggest accelerator for any sports league is television. I think you need to bend over backwards to try to please those television providers, because screens are more and more and more and more and more addicting and important to the younger generations as ever before. You know, my grandparents could go a week probably without looking at a screen. If I went 5 hours without my son trying to find a screen, I think you would go crazy. Now, you could argue whether that's good or a bad thing. I think there's a healthy balance between the two, but screens are important, and television is a screen. And at the end of the day, I hope Major League Baseball realizes that sooner than later, because I think that their product, not to jump all over the globe, and I know Final Four is the subject matter now, but Major League Baseball, they have a product right now that I think is actually pretty good. I can sit down and watch a baseball game now, and I actually think there's some pace to it. And I'm not trying to say that it's all because of the pitch clock, but it's certainly a lot to do with the pitch clock. I think the 3-batter rule is incredibly great, because you don't have this situation where you bring one guy in for a lefty, and the next thing you know, you take him out, and then you bring somebody else in, and an inning takes 35 minutes. So overall thoughts on just the fact that they need to get this thing on a television screen because the product's good enough now.
Sirboy actually quote tweeted us, you, me, and Nick Kirby, tweet from Jeff Passan about the MLB the first opening weekend, and said that the first opening weekend from last year to this year, the games have been cut down by 30 minutes, 30 full minutes. The batting average has ticked up 15 points. The on-base percentage has ticked up 20 points. Now, that stuff could just be small sample size. Yeah. But stolen bases have multiplied by nearly 3. There were 30 stolen bases last year through the first weekend. There were 70 this first weekend. So their rule changes already showing a dramatic improvement to the game and the watchability.
There's no question. In fact, I think it's probably the greatest rule change that's happened to sports in the last 20 years. Now, that sounds like somebody's going to say, oh, that's an overreaction. I don't think it's an overreaction at all, because it's changed fundamentally the way the game is watched and perceived to the public at a whole that has long drawn the conclusion that baseball is boring, and baseball with more stolen bases, and on the opposite side, which is just the flow of a game looks and feels much better with the pitch clock. All right, Final Four. I do feel incredibly bad for FAU. I know Thom mentioned that on his show. I thought FAU outplayed San Diego State for the vast majority of that game. There was a 5-minute stretch, 6-minute stretch where FAU, they just kind of lost their identity for a minute. I thought they took some bad shots. They let San Diego State get back into the game. And then if you let someone hang around, we've said this all the time, you let someone hang around for long enough, and there's always the opportunity they can sneak up and bite you at the very end, and that's what happened with San Diego State. Butler hitting an incredible shot that will probably go down as one of March Madness historical replay runs that you're going to see for the next 10 years when the highlight clips come up of March Madness. Jenkins' 3 from Villanova is always right there, and now Butler's is going to have his image immortalized, I'm sure. And one cool thing to note, Jim Nantz got a standing ovation, as he rightfully should have, for the Final Four. Tonight is probably going to be a little bit of an emotional scene, I would assume, for him. You've been calling something for I don't know how long, if you know off the top of your head, Paul. Was it 34 probably years? I want to say 34 years he's been calling the Final Four and national championship games. He then has to turn around and obviously call the Masters on Sunday. And Jim Nantz, for as much as everybody always complains about broadcasters and play-by-play guys, and you like this guy, you hate this guy, Jim Nantz probably for me is the voice for so many things that were important to me as I grown up. And the Final Four and March Madness itself is one of those, and certainly the Masters is another one. Thankfully for us golf fans, he's not leaving the Masters. But I don't know. It'll be a little bit different. Have they announced his replacement? I'm assuming it's going to be Ian Eagle.
It is.
It's going to be Ian Eagle. So, and Ian Eagle's great. So we're not really – I don't want to say we're not losing anything at all. But Jim Nantz, what a life he's lived, too. I know he was talking about how grateful he's been, but just think about all the moments. Not only has he called, but he's got to witness and live and in the flesh.
Yeah, between March Madness, golf, the NFL, everything he's ever done. I mean, he was Houston forever. Yeah, he's been around for a lot of the biggest moments that you can think of, especially in college basketball, but now even as he's done more in the NFL and, of course, the Masters. There's a lot of moments where you think, oh, I remember that for a long time. Oh, yeah, that was Jim Nantz. That was Jim Nantz.
Do you think you become numb to it?
Yes.
Right? Like, do you think, like, he can recognize and say out loud and say, like, oh, yeah, I'm so blessed. But do you think, like, all these moments just mesh together? It's just – you think they mean anything to Jim Nantz, I guess is what you're saying. It means something to us because we remember it, but does it mean anything to the man who's presenting these moments?
I think so, just because of he comes across as somebody that really, truly cares deeply about a lot of this, especially golf. Maybe not so much the Final Four, maybe not so much college basketball, I guess I should say, although that would be arguably something that he's most recognized for over, I mean, golf. Like, people watch the majors, but how many people are really tuning into the Valero Open I know he wasn't doing that because he's doing the Final Four, but you get what I mean.
Yeah.
I would say probably sport-wise now, would you put Nantz recognizability, that's not a word, but you know what I'm getting at. Would you put Nantz with his football over college basketball? I wouldn't, but would you put – because when I think of the NFL with Jim Nantz, I can't think – and maybe I'm just blanking right now because I'm doing this on the spot. I can't think of a memorable Nantz moment that I think, oh, that's NFL Nantz moment. Because I think Patriots Super Bowl, that was Buck. A lot of the big Super Bowls that I'm thinking of were Buck. The Patriots with the Seahawks, that was Al Michaels. I'm trying to think of a CBS Super Bowl. I mean, I guess last year with the Bengals and Kansas City, as it relates to Bengals fans, he did the Kansas City game. But I'm just trying to think of a transcendental NFL moment that Jim Nantz has done. And there could be one that I'm just very clearly missing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the NFL is so big that I think that if the question is based off of how many more people know him for his NFL calls over his NCAA Final Four and or the Masters, I think the answer is the NFL, and that's just because the product is so big. I think if you boiled it down to where's the biggest juice squeeze ratio, it's really close for the Final Four and Masters. The only reason I say the Masters is because he's been the only guy for so long that he is the voice.
Right.
So it's like the Final Four sometimes, the greatest games of the tournament aren't always in the specific Final Four, whereas the Masters is what it is. It's him and it's only him. Now you could argue, and rightfully so, that the biggest call of the Masters in the last 20 years doesn't even belong to him with Vern Lundquist in the 16th hole with Tiger Woods' chip. So you could make that argument, and I would say, you know what, you're probably right. But all in all, I guess I just wanted to at least put a footnote there that this is Jim Nantz's last call on the microphone tonight. UConn against San Diego State. I think it's going to be a good game. I really do. I think San Diego State's one of those teams that can muck up a game. They are physical enough to handle UConn and their length and how strong and big and athletic UConn can be at times. I think San Diego State can match that. I'm not suggesting that San Diego State's going to win the game, but I would be careful laying 7.5 points because that's a lot of basketball points in a big game. You might think UConn's dominating the game, and they might be up by 12, but there's always an opportunity when you got 7.5 points laying out there from a vault standpoint. Betfred Sportsbook. There was the opportunity of a backdoor cover with 7.5 points, no matter how good you feel. You will not feel good about that bet unless UConn is up by 15 or 20 points. Think of it like that. Right. I mean, if UConn's up by 12 with 2.5 minutes left, you're still going to be sweating out that bet a little bit. That's why I always say when you got those big lines, unless you think UConn's going to win by 15 plus, you're going to be sweating a little bit. Lineup card just submitted by David Bell for your Cincinnati Reds. Jonathan India will be leaning off playing second base. Spencer Steer playing third base in the 2-hole. Will Myers in the 3-hole playing first base. Tyler Stevenson DHing, hitting fourth. Kevin Newman at shortstop, hitting fifth. Spencer Fairchild is hitting sixth in left field. What do we got here? Malley is catching. Barrero is in center field. And TJ Friedel, I believe, is in right, correct? I don't know. I can't see the last position. Since Will Myers is playing first base, that means TJ Friedel has to be in right field, considering Spencer Fairchild's in left field. This is what they tell you in math, or actually they tell you when you're test taking. Process of elimination. That's what I just tried to do right there.
Stuart Fairchild probably had a whirlwind of a last week.
No doubt about it, man.
He was sent down to the minors.
Yeah.
And then gets a call, the day before?
Spring training. They sent him down like a week before camp broke that he was going to be optioned to AAA. So he went to minor league camp. And then the day before, I think opening day. Well, he went I think it was 2 days before opening day because he was a part of the scrimmages the day before opening day, and he was wearing number 17. So.
And he got to play in opening day, so good for Stuart.
Yeah, no doubt. And his girlfriend or wife, or I think it's his girlfriend, fiance, I'm not sure which one, is on. She's becoming like a TikTok star.
Yeah, she's TikTok famous.
She's a TikTok famous.
I actually.
Who?
Her name's Hannah Randall, and I watched her TikTok. She's got this shtick where she asked him like she knows nothing about baseball, and she asked him why does the pitcher stand on a hill and stuff, like dumb questions, and I'd watched her TikToks for like a month, and then eventually I looked up. I was like, all right, who's this Hannah Randall's boyfriend? And it was like, oh, he's a Red. It just happened to be Stuart Fairchild. So,
I've seen. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen that.
She's TikTok famous. But how do you feel about the opening weekend for the Reds? Lost opening day, took 2 or 3, and all 3 of your starting pitchers looked good. I mean, I know Hunter Green only went 3 1/3, but he still struck out 8 guys in that 3 1/3.
Yeah, of all the guys, the top 3, the one that I have the biggest question marks for myself is Hunter Green. I'm not saying I'm not sold on the guy. I just don't think that he has anywhere near the pitchability of a Lodolo and or Ashcraft. In fact, I'm not just saying this because yesterday Ashcraft went 7 innings. With only 1 run given up, I almost think I liken him more than any of them. And Green's one of those guys that can go out and overpower people. I get it. He has the quote-unquote best stuff. But I just don't know if I trust him as much in a big game as I do the other 2 guys.
There's certainly a degree of, I don't know the right word, bias or stuff like that, because you hear so much about Hunter Green that you hold him, you scrutinize him more than the other 2 because you expect more out of Hunter Green, to where they could all have the same performance, all go, 6 innings, 2 runs given up, but you will say Nick Lodolo and Graham Ashcraft looked better because you expect a little bit more out of Hunter Green. I mean, you've played on baseball teams, you've been a coach, you've done the thing. When there's the star on the player, he's held to a higher standard, right? And I think Hunter Green is maybe going to be held to a higher standard. He certainly has that stuff, but he will always be scrutinized more so than Nick Lodolo and Graham Ashcraft. And maybe rightfully so, right? Because he does have the ability to be a Cy Young guy, while the other 2, maybe their ceilings are all-stars, right? So you hold him to a higher standard.
Yeah, well, listen, anytime guys are throwing 102 consistently, 103, and then they StatCast, I know, pulled it back, but they get quote-unquote 105 mile an hour on a radar gun, there's going to be people that are fringe baseball watchers that are going to eventually have his name ingrained in the fact that he's the best pitcher. When in reality, in my opinion, I've watched Hunter Green enough now to where I have this sense that I think 2 things that are true. One is I don't know if Hunter has proven to me yet to be able to be a guy that can get deep into games if he doesn't have his best stuff. And you're not going to have your quote-unquote best stuff all the time, if at all. I don't want to say if at all, but very rarely do you have your best stuff going into a game. On top of that, I don't know if Hunter Green is not as hittable as people think. Like, he gets hit hard at times. I don't know if it's just that his fastball is straight. And I know this sounds ridiculous in saying that a 102-mile-an-hour fastball is easy to hit. I don't think that it is. I don't want to sound like an absolute lunatic over here. But I just think sometimes he gets hit harder than the other guys do. And, maybe it's recency bias on my part and thinking that the guy only got, through 3 innings on opening day. But when you're when you're strikeout heavy, you're going to throw more pitches, which makes it a little more difficult for you to get deeper into games. You can like one way over the other. Listen, if all 3 of those guys stay healthy, the Cincinnati Reds are going to be in a position where they're going to win more games than people think. I believe that wholeheartedly. This offense is probably still a pretty big question mark. So far, opening weekend, if we're being quite frank, we're getting production out of guys we never dreamed of getting production out of. And that's the way that you have to probably overachieve in a season like this. Guys like Vossler, who you never heard of before opening day, are getting big hits. They're hitting home runs. They're getting, for all intents and purposes, Vossler had a great day yesterday. Not in the lineup today, but we'll see. I'm not going to get my hopes up too high, but again, I'm going to go back to this, what I'm going to say all year. I'm not going to be on the show a lot, but for Chatterbox Reds perspective, Matt McLain's having a hell of a start to his career in AAA. It's another level up for him, but he's having a hell of a start. We'll see if Ellie De La Cruz looks good when he becomes healthy. Encarnacion Strand's the best player that the Reds had in Major League camp. You can be as pessimistic as you want. I get it. I see some people in the chat in here already. They're complaining about Viking helmets. They're complaining about the Reds and how they're going to fall apart and how they're a disgrace to the franchise. If that's the way you want to be, that's fine. I'm not gonna try to convince you otherwise. I'm just gonna tell you though right now that the Cincinnati Reds have some legit prospects coming up, and they're not that far away. It's not like I'm begging you to believe in Edwin Arroyo, who, for all intents and purposes, a lot of people in the organization love as much. I guess he's second in line to Ellie De La Cruz. He is in single A. I'm not asking you to believe in that guy. I'm asking you to believe in the guy that's in AAA right now, who's getting on base half the time, who was a first-round pick in Matt McLain. That's who I'm asking you to probably believe in. We'll see. All right, the Cubs. What do I get to see? I know I dig it, Yalot Reed. I do admire the fact that you love the Cubs this much. I know that there's probably some more digs coming my way from time to time because I can do that, and why not do it when I can. You guys have Smiley pitching today.
Drew Smiley, who has been pretty productive over the past 2 years, won a world championship 2 years ago with the Braves, and then pitched for the Cubs last year and had about a 3.5 ERA. And he's just a guy in the back end of the rotation that's going to get 130 innings, 140 innings, and if he stays on the field, he's just a solid pitcher. Sometimes he's going to give up 9 runs. Sometimes he's going to shut you down for 6 innings. It's just what you get with Drew Smiley. He's at the end of his 33. He's been in the league for 10 years, just a veteran. The fun game this week is going to be Wednesday when it's Marcus Stroman versus Hunter Green. And you got one guy throwing 102 miles an hour and the other guy throwing right around 90 in Marcus Stroman, which is kind of the MO of the Cubs. Listen, the Cubs are they don't have as many prospects as the Reds do, but they've got a lot that they're excited about. And there's a lot of pushback about the team that the Cubs have put out there so far. And these older guys like Eric Hosmer and Cody Bellinger and Miles Mastropiano, whatever his name is, playing when we have Christopher Morel and all these young guys, Matt Mervis and Pete Crow Armstrong, Brennan Davis, all these young, exciting players that you're ready to see. You want to see, and we're throwing out 33-year-old Eric Hosmer, who's 0 for 7 and struck out in half his at-bats, and Cody Bellinger, who's 0 for 11 in his first 11 at-bats. And
he was a previous All-Star, though, Reader.
He's previous MVP.
Oh, my bad. Even MVP.
Yeah, 46 home runs. You know, it's hard to tell what we saw from the Cubs this past weekend because they played the best rotation in the NL Central, and Freddie Peralta, Brandon Woodruff, and Corbin Burns. But we'll see a lot more out of it. I'm still excited. I truly think that the Cubs will compete for a wild card spot this year. And I know that's crazy in the NL because of all the teams that are in the East and the West. But I think that this team can win 84, 85 games and play some exciting baseball in September. Man, and I appreciate you getting me tickets for today's game.
No problem.
I really do appreciate it.
I can't wait for you to go down there and watch Connor Overton. Really deal. It's one of those things.
How did you end up with Connor Overton as the fourth starter?
Well, don't worry about it. The same way that you ended up with Smiley as your fourth starter. At the end of the day, my thought process is this. I just got excited. I'm going to tell you why I got really excited. Reed Mouse is out here. He's saying, and he's very knowledgeable, probably the most knowledgeable baseball guy I know. He's telling us that the Chicago Cubs have a chance to play for a playoff spot this year. And I looked down at my Betfred Sportsbook app today, and I seen that the Cincinnati Reds are throwing Connor Overton with this, matchup lineup that we got going out there. And it's basically a pick'em today. Basically a pick'em. Now, one could argue it's because the Reds are in a homestand, and they've been at home, right, and the Cubs are not. But the fact that the playoff-bound Chicago Cubs are coming into town with Connor Overton on the mound, and the Cincinnati Reds are a pick'em, I'm feeling pretty good about that as a Reds fan.
I mean, to be fair to the Cubs have a couple, important pieces on the injured list. Not that most teams don't, but like Seiya Suzuki's on the injured list. Kyle Hendricks is on the injured list. I'm looking at it right now. Those are the first two that came to mind. I'm trying to find their roster, but
does Kyle Hendrickson have like a
Kyle Hendricks?
Is it Hendricks? I'm sorry.
Yep.
Not. I was thinking of Trey Hendrickson. Is he like AARP at this point? What age are we at?
Kyle Hendricks, he's probably 35.
I mean, that's like the Chicago Cubs.
I mean, what's it matter when the dude throws 88 miles an hour? I mean, when you throw your changeup in half your pitches as he does.
Right. Rich Hill looked good the other day too. You guys might be able to get him at the deadline.
32 years old. 32 years old is how old Kyle Hendricks is.
Gotcha. Well, maybe the Cubs will get Rich Hill at the deadline when they make their playoff push, and all will be well on the north side of Chicago. But tonight they have to go to Great American Ballpark and face Connor Overton, and that's going to be a problem for them. Wheel of Lunch. Fellas, I'm going to do Wheel of Lunch one more time here with you. Like I said, I don't know. This isn't a goodbye. It'll be a see you later for a little while until we got some, like I said, hopefully big news coming for Chatterbox. But I appreciate all of you guys. I'll be in the Discord. You're not going to not hear from me.
Sonic.
Rich Hill is a bum. Rich Hill struggled the other day, that's for sure. Rich Hill is one of those guys when he was throwing, me sitting there at 30 whatever years old I am at this point, I can't even know. I don't even remember how old I am. Stop counting. I actually thought to myself that if you gave me 10 at-bats against Rich Hill, I'm getting hit. I'm going to get one hit. I feel pretty good about that. Let's see here.
Rich Hill's hilarious because he came up with the Cubs when they made their playoff runs back in 2007, 2008. This was the rotation for the Cubs when Rich Hill first came up. You ready for this?
I'm listening.
Mark Pryor, Kerry Wood, Carlos Zambrano, Ted Lilly. And I'm sure Greg Maddux got in there at some point. Just some old names. That's how long Rich Hill's been around the game.
I'd be curious to know. I'm sure you can. I'm sure you can dig this up as fast as you can. What was the year salary for Kerry Wood the year that Rich Hill was playing for them? And what's Rich Hill's salary this year?
Rich Hill this year is making $8 million.
Yeah. How much was Kerry Wood? Which at the time, to be clear, right? Kerry Wood was
a closer, so he was at the. It was after he had some injuries and stuff like that. So he was tailing end of his career.
Well, then what was his? I want to know what peak Kerry Wood was getting paid.
Peak Kerry Wood in 2006 made his most amount of money that he made was $12 million.
$12 million.
Yep.
Incredible.
Yep.
Not that that's not a big deal. It's $4 million. I shouldn't say it's only $4 million.
The craziest one that I've ever looked up was Nolan Ryan, who was in the league for 27 years. when he was a rookie on that Mets team, the Miracle Mets that won the World Series, he made $6,000 or $60,000. By the end of his career, he was making $1 million and was like the highest paid guy. But he came in making like $6,000 in like 1966.
Casey, can I do a few vetoes here? Or do we want to just keep adding? We can keep adding.
I mean, this has got to be a big wheel, right?
All right.
This is
going to be a big wheel. All right. Throw Chipotle up on there.
Panda Express should be on there.
Are we in the trust tree here?
Oh, no.
Didn't like it.
I gave it another. Casey and I gave it another shot.
Wasn't good.
No.
Come on, guys.
I'm not saying like I
What
won't
did you
ever
get?
go back.
I will say this. I've had it
Go
It's
ahead.
$1.
I've had it twice, and their sides have been old. You can just tell they've been sitting out for a while.
yeah.
I've tried both.
The orange. I don't know.
What'd you get?
You had lo mein twice.
I had lo mein twice. I haven't tried the rice yet,
Okay.
but I did the orange chicken and the Brazilian beef.
Didn't like it.
I'm an
Wasn't
orange chicken. I thought
twice.
the orange chicken was good.
I mean, it's okay. It's all right. All right, but throw it on there.
Hey, just so you know, did you see that?
What?
This is pertinent to you, Reed. Very important for you. Last chance for free MLB.TV. Find out how you can score free MLB TV. Switch to T-Mobile today and stream your team all season long.
So I got to switch to T-Mobile today.
I don't know if you need to switch, but you need to just see if you have to opt in. You need to double check on that. You have T-Mobile, correct?
I do have T-Mobile.
So you need to look into that.
Right. I just looked up Nolan Ryan's contract. As a 19-year-old for the New York Mets in 1966, he made $3,600 for the season. As a 46-year-old for the Texas Rangers in 1992, he made $4.2 million.
Brutal. Good for him.
He made more money his final year in the league than he did in his first 12.
Hey, business was booming. Free ad for T-Mobile, too, by the way.
That's all right. I got a good deal with them. I'll never leave.
That's what he
I'll
says.
never leave.
That's never say never. Sonic, they had a commercial. I know this is going to make the player formerly known as Mouth Cop relatively happy. This is a real thing that happened on Sunday.
Firehouse.
There was a commercial that was ran on Sunday. I don't know what I was watching because I was all over the place between the Valero Open, NASCAR, and the Women's Championship. But there was a Sonic commercial, and I thought to myself, player formerly known as Mouse Cop would be happy, but look how terrible that looks. What a god-awful place Sonic is.
Throw no lunch up there, just for a little fun on the last day.
We're going to spice this up. All right. This wheel is going to take every bit of...
This is going to take us a little bit.
Every bit of 3 minutes, which means one thing. We ended the show perfectly right on time.
All right.
And Canes is going to be out. It was nice to know you. I love the chatter, the little claps they give you.
We can't hear
Casey's
it,
got to go
I'm sure it's
find
great.
it.
Nice software.
Oh, keep going.
Firehouse is out.
Why did we put two good options next to each other?
Oh, he's mad about it.
Oh. Rigged wheel.
It doesn't matter if they're next to each other. It's probability, brother.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well,
all right, that's fine.
McDonald's.
See ya.
Shout out Filet-O-Fish. I'm just going to start randomly saying one great thing that's from every single place as they get knocked out of the Wheel of Lunch breakdown.
Taco Bell, please stay.
Penn Station.
Oh,
East Coast subs. They got
Sponsor.
Yeah, they got a solid fry.
At least the Ham and Egger desk says they're a sponsor.
All right. Arby's, the old beef and cheddar. Can't go wrong. Number one.
Arby's is underrated.
McDonald's is hit or miss, man. I'll tell you that right now. You can get a great McDonald's or
no
lunch. No lunch. Sonic, that's
right,
so
good.
close I can't tell. Sonic.
Oh no!
Oh man!
Oh no! I thought.
Oh man!
I thought we had. Oh no!
Yep.
Oh no! I thought that was on
Burger
no
King.
lunch.
Burger King had they had the best chicken sandwich out of the bunch when everybody was doing their chicken sandwich thing. The King. Of course, they got rid of it because it was too good.
What about McDonald's rebranding their chicken sandwich? What about a swing and a miss that they had from
Keep
the get-go?
going.
Wendy's. The old Dave's Double. Can't go wrong there.
No lunch is hanging around a little too long.
Yeah, Richards looks great too. I'd like to keep Richards around till it did.
Don't worry, Trace jinxes don't exist.
Yeah, they don't. Golly day.
All right, that's fine.
Skyline. I'm cool with that.
I had
if we're
Skyline
being
yesterday.
honest. No lunches hanging around here, boys.
No lunch is just kind of hanging in the background.
Speaking of eating.
No.
See you, Jersey Mike's. Should
No.
we go to the Eagle tonight?
Big
To be
time.
fair, there's
Eagles
not really
a
an
great
option
spot.
on here that I wouldn't be happy with.
Had it
except
at
for the no
our
lunch.
rehearsal dinner.
And there goes Panda. Oh, that's Panda, right?
Yep.
Wow. Just no lunch has got to go.
No lunch has got to get out of here.
It's not. There goes Culver's. Nice knowing you.
We have a
Culver's, sneaky good fish sandwich if you didn't know.
We have a 25% chance of being hungry here.
Wow.
Yeah,
There we go.
Needed
There
it.
we go.
Needed it.
This is how we win.
Needed it.
I would prefer Taco Bell to go next.
Yeah. I got to wait a week for Taco Bell. Next Monday, I get my Baja Blast back.
Come on.
No. Oh, no.
I know you've been.
So we're
wanting
going
that one
south
for a
of the
while.
border. Either way.
We are. Good call on that ball.
Oh man, they're the same color too.
Yeah, watch it land right in the middle.
Oh, what is it?
Electric
No
Factory.
idea. I have no idea.
Oh, what? That one got eliminated. We're going to Chipotle.
All right. The fact that 50 of you are still hanging around here watching us just spin a wheel is that's what makes Chatterbox and all of you basically are Chatterbox. That's who you are. You're great. Until next time, which I don't know for me when that will be, I'll keep in touch with you all through the Discord chat, of course. And if you want to watch Chatterbox Reds, I didn't die. No, I'm not dead. I'm just not coming back on Box Lunch for quite some time. We'll see. What was I going to say? Chatterbox Reds, live after every game. Nick Kirby and myself from time to time breaking it down.
Boo.
But you know what? The beautiful thing is they play the Chicago Cubs today, which means we have a chance to win. If we were playing a good team, I don't know how I'd feel about it, but we're not. So let's take these wins when we can get them. Tonight, Connor Overton. He's going to deal. He's going to send us in to one more game above 500 and another game closer to being in the lead, which we already are in the NL Central, than the lovable losers of Chicago. And I've said it before. They got one of those things right, and it's not lovable. Take care, everybody.